Hello and welcome to episode 229 of the Random Nintendo Podcast. I'm Jason.
I'm Angel.
I'm Kevin, and this is our fourth attempt at an intro.
You know, sometimes you just gotta... Well, I'd say third time's the charm, but we're one past it. So what is that? What is fourth time?
I have no idea.
A fourth, I don't know.
Fourth time's the last resort, I guess. But we're in. I mean, we're in
more
for
than
a good,
four before.
That's true, and we're in for a good episode, regardless of how many intro attempts we took. It's a pretty point blank name for this episode. We're just calling it something old, something new, because we're gonna be talking about some old stuff, some new stuff, and well, I guess some new iterations of old stuff. But we're gonna be singling out a couple Super Nintendo games that are now available on Switch Online. We're gonna be sharing some impressions. Angel, you've been playing Lonely Mountains Downhill on Switch. I've been playing Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 Plus in time for its 40th anniversary this weekend. Plus, of course, we're going to be talking about the latest Nintendo news from Paper Mario and the Origami King and its really short lead time between announcement and release, to what that approach may mean for other Nintendo announcements, to what third parties are up to, like Mortal Kombat and Tony Hawk not being on Switch, and Evo. Evo's going digital now, online only. So there's timestamps on the blog post for this episode, but stay tuned to the very end of the show because, or I guess you could skip ahead, because we, courtesy of Kevin, are doing a very special Amiibo giveaway to celebrate our new sub-series that you may have noticed right under this episode on your podcast feed, The Quarantine Chronicles. So there's also that. Kevin, how many Amiibo do you have? How many are you giving away?
It's at least 30, I think.
And are they all like in box?
They're all inboxed.
Wow, and there's some rare ones, right?
I guess the first run of the villager, because the nose is
with
actually
the weird eye.
No,
with the weird eye.
No, because
the weird nose.
No, it's not weird. It's an actual nose. Like they painted it on for the second series.
That's
it got redesigned.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so if you want
I'm sure you also have some
that...
uncommon ones like maybe Wii Fit Trainer or
Wii Fit Trainer. There's a Marth in there. But yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, it's
Jigglypuff.
So if you want to like own a bunch of Amiibo, here's your opportunity.
Any Amiibo
if you want to sell a bunch of Amiibo, here's your opportunity. So you should stick around and enter.
I need to get rid of
how to enter
things. All right.
You're gonna need to bleep yourself, good sir. But yeah, it's wow, you really hate Amiibo now, huh?
Listen, it was a waste of time. If I say so myself.
Let's dive into the psyche before we even get to our timestamps. What about Amiibo has led you to be bedinged here on the show about it?
Like what is their use aside from? Can you guys explain to me their use?
No.
Because I think when Amiibo came out, we were like, oh my god, this has so much potential. They barely do anything.
It's true.
I always thought of them as just little statuettes that happen to do something sometimes. So
yeah, I thought of them first.
So if they don't have use, that's more like they're just doing what they're really supposed to be doing, which is just being a little something you have on a desk or something.
Oh yeah, but
I mean, it's not how they were advertised, but
that's.
They're just they're supposed to offer essentially microbytes of DLC. They definitely were best used in Smash Brothers. I feel like. If people, I mean, people can and still do have essentially Pokemon fights in Smash Brothers, which is really cool. Just train a few Amiibo, send them out in certain orders, blah, blah, blah. But
and they do have a use in Animal Crossing. If you have the Amiibo card, you can scan any of them to have that villager come visit your campsite in New Horizons. So there's a way to get your favorite villagers back. So much so that they're reprinting Amiibo cards in Japan now.
But let's talk about the Smash ones.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Some of the Amiibo are really cool, like the Wind Waker stuff that came out.
Oh yeah, and
the Wild stuff that came out. Those are cool.
And they make really cool collectibles.
Yeah. But for the Smash series,
what a great way to sell people on a giveaway. Hey guys, you want these things that we don't really know what they're for? Angel has some idea, but the other two of us are like, well, you can. But yeah, it's I always thought of those collectibles first, like Angel was saying. But in terms of their gameplay functionality, they're basically plastic paywalls. That's the phrase I kept using in their prime.
Yeah,
and I mean, I got
the
totally
stuff they
hooked
provided
on it,
were things that could have just as easily been in the game.
Exactly.
I mean, the only other cool thing I could think of was just when it gave the Mii's character-specific costumes in Mario Kart Deluxe or the sprites in Mario Maker. Those are really cool.
And I do think to be fair to Amiibo, like they were at the time they were exactly what Nintendo kind of needed to like jog their sales a bit and get some fan excitement going, because they were, if you're a Nintendo fan, they are really fun, cool collectibles to have. These characters that would never get merchandise otherwise suddenly have merchandise.
That's
Like
part of
Chibi
special,
Robo,
especially if you have space, which I don't. That's
yes,
primarily
well, that's
why I'm
the
getting
thing.
rid of them.
Yeah, it's like I have like somewhere. I didn't collect all the Smash Bros, but I have like somewhere between 45 and 50, I would guess, and they're all just sitting under my desk in their boxes because I don't know what to do with them. But I'm glad I have them, because when else are we gonna get merch for some of those characters? When else is a little Mac gonna have a little figurine or whatever?
Are you glad that you have them, or are you glad that they exist?
I am glad I have them because I have to justify the frenzied state of mind I was in for those 2 years, and the only way I could justify it is to still be happy with the choice. No, honestly, I am glad I have them because I like having little pieces of Nintendo history. Like, I like having some weird one-off things from back in the day. So if it's the one-off, Yarn Yoshi merch they're ever going to make, I'm glad I have it to say I have that one weird Yarn Yoshi they made.
It's sitting in the box under my desk.
Yeah, it's kind of like my game. Well, I mean, come on, Kevin. It's kind of like my games.
Yeah, true.
Like, I buy the games, like, I'm glad I have it, and then I never fully finish them. So, speaking of, should we talk about some games we've been playing? We've been starting with what we're playing. These last few episodes, since the before times have come to an end, we've been doing what we're playing up front. So, should we just keep that going? Talk about some of the old, maybe, since our title starts with that. Nintendo. So they surprise announced a set of Super Nintendo and NES games for Switch Online subscribers, and it's already out. And I think for the first time in a while, there's actually some interesting ones.
I think it's sad that it's a surprise announcement because they feel like they rarely ever do these anymore. Like, I forget.
Is someone driving? Are we driving? Is someone like podcasting from a car?
I forget that the service even exists until like Nintendo puts out these like random games. And most of the time, obviously, like I don't care about them, but
right,
they do offer a variety. Ones. I mean, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, they do have some RPGs on there, some interesting looking competitive games, like this one where you're like going down a river. That one looked kind of fun.
Oh, on NES, right?
Yeah, on NES.
Yeah.
Surprisingly on NES.
Yeah.
But a lot of them just feel like super derivative of each other. It's like even on this batch, they released Panel de Pon, which just looks like, I'm pretty sure we have another panel style game on the NES already, if not on the SNES.
We do not. Panel de Pon, that's the first entry in that series.
No, not even like specifically Panel de Pon, just another like match.
No, that's the first entry in that puzzle series ever made, so it's impossible to have it on. There's Yoshi's Cookie, which is similar but different, but this is the first actual Puzzle League style game that Nintendo ever made, so we don't. Just by definition. I know because I care deeply about Panel de Pon, as you'll hear when I talk about it in a minute. But
well, I mean, we have Puyo Puyo on there, right? Or no?
Yes, but that's a different puzzle game that has a similar alliteration.
No, the gameplay-wise, it's very similar. Yeah,
I would disagree. No,
you would not know.
I would disagree. What do you mean? I love Panel de Pon. Puzzle League's like my favorite puzzle series.
The gameplay is pretty similar, I would say. They're just like kind of inverse of each other, but you play it the same way.
Well, then they're not the same. But
they're
there
similar,
are differences.
So they're similar.
Well, I mean, all puzzle games on some level are similar. Any block game is pretty similar. But anyway, yeah, you were saying. I didn't mean to cut you off on Panel de Pon. What were you saying beyond that?
I don't know. The only game that I guess I had any kind of remote interest in was Wild Guns, just because I remember playing that in arcades, which is pretty cool. And
you've been playing it now on Switch, right?
A little, here and there.
How's it holding up? Is it what you remember?
Yeah, it's still as fun as I remember. It's not as hard as I remembered, because I remember playing it very young, but it's deep enough that I could definitely see myself revisiting it a few times. Though it does make me miss playing the reloaded version. I don't remember where I played that one, but I remember you could, like, normally by default you could play as a cowboy and a cowgirl, but in the reloaded version you could play as a little dash hound that has a little remote control drone that you can use to attack things while you run around as a dog, which is pretty cool. But this one doesn't have that. I mean, it's still the same, like 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 levels. It's an arcade style game. You're shooting into the background. Everything kills you with one hit. It's kind of like Contra. But, I don't know, it's fun. You have a cool dodge mechanic. Bosses are interesting. I think it's the first time I haven't been completely disappointed with the selection of games. on a personal level.
So,
but yeah.
so with Wild Gun, so you're shooting into screen? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So it's like fake 3D?
I mean, I don't know if I call it fake 3D. It's just drawn depth. They're not trying to make it look like it's in 3D.
But I mean, like, it's using the Z-axis. Like, it's almost like a light gun game, it sounds like.
I mean, your character is running in the foreground, left and right on the X-axis, and you're just shooting into the screen, I guess. You just have a cursor that you just shoot at. It's weird to describe. You just have to see it.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, I'm gonna defend Pound Upon now.
It's a. I mean, go ahead. I don't.
No, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say about Wild Guns?
Oh no, there isn't really much to say about that game. It's like a very simplistic like arcade shooter. So.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I'm gonna defend Pound Upon a bit because it is different from Puyo. Because Puyo things are flying from the top, and you make chains of 3, and they can be L-shaped, and they can be different things. This one, you have blocks rising up from the bottom, and you can only do horizontal or vertical combos. So they are different somewhat. But I think I do need to say up front, I have a bias here. If you like those games as Jason clearly does, then you will care to point out the difference. Otherwise, yeah,
it's just another match 3 puzzler, and that's pretty much all I will see.
Yeah, no, but it's more than match 3. Again, I'm biased. I'm gonna say it up front. Like, if you go look at, I don't know if you remember anyone
if you
out
like
there
match 3 puzzles, it's an awesome addition that I'm sure you'll be happy about. If you don't, then whatever.
I mean, that's true of any genre. If you distill it to the simplest level, yeah. But
yeah, I just happened to distill it in front of a fan of one of those, which
and then you unleash this inner beast of Pound Upon Defense Force I didn't know I had. But no, it's it's been a game I really like, because if you even look back, like, and to prove this is like legit, Angel, I'm not just calling you out. Like, go look back at the flashback we did for Game Boy Color. One of my all-time favorite Game Boy Color games, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, which is Pound Upon reskinned. And basically ever since I was introduced to that style of puzzle, which originally was Pound Upon and then came to the US as Tetris Attack, and it's been probably my favorite puzzle game since. But it has been weird how weird Nintendo has been about actually giving us Pound Upon up to this point. Like, we got it with Pokemon Puzzle League, we got it with Pokemon Puzzle Challenge on Challenge on Game Boy and League on 64. We got it again with Dr. Mario and Puzzle League as a double pack on Game Boy, I think Advance. We then got it on DS with Planet Puzzle League as this kind of oft-forgotten Touch Generations that actually did come out, but no one really remembers. And there was a DSi successor, Puzzle League Express. And then they kind of just gave up on the brand. Maybe to your point that to too many people it feels too similar, because it kind of just like disappeared. Like, weirdly, it was inside Animal Crossing New Leaf as part of the Welcome Amiibo update. But it wasn't called Puzzle League. It was just there as a puzzle minigame. And the Puzzle League name itself basically like vanished, and now Nintendo's giving us the original, still in Japanese version of Pound Upon, and they only slyly even reference it's the same as Puzzle League in the press material. They just say it may seem familiar. So I don't know what they're doing on the branding level, but what I'm kind of hoping is that Pound Upon coming back now is sort of a dry run.
I mean, they even have
I don't know.
Are they ashamed of it or something? I mean, they even reference it in Smash Brothers with the flower.
I know,
item.
Yeah, the flower rod is Lip's wand from Pound Upon. Yeah, I don't know.
She even has a trophy in some of the games.
Yeah, she has a trophy. It's very strange. So I think originally they didn't bring it over as Pound Upon back in the day, because the game's very flowery and chill, and it's always like kind of female anime-ish, like fairy tale-ish characters. And I wonder if Nintendo's like, oh, that's not like aggressive enough for 1995. Like, that was like, pure like extreme 90s. So they went with Tetris Attack, because that sounds so, one, it has the Tetris name, and two, it sounds way more aggressive. But yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe they're doing a soft reset at this point of the brand, because the number one problem it's had since the Pokemon Puzzle League and Challenge games is it had no real identity. It was very sterile, especially the DS one. Super sterile. And what I found kind of striking when I booted up Pound Upon on the Super Nintendo is that the game actually has personality to it. Like, there is that art style. There is this cutesy little Nintendo sound effect that plays right away. There's really like soft, like relaxing music and kind of nice hues of pink and blue, and like it's very much, it has a distinct look, which Nintendo completely disregarded here in the West. And obviously I can't understand the dialogue of anything that's happening in the game. The game's actually still in full Japanese. They did not translate a thing, but there is a story mode, so there is actually, like, this is the first time since the Pokemon ones that there's actually a reason to progress besides you like puzzles. And that makes me think there's maybe hope here for something, because and like even if you just look at it by itself, it is a pretty all-encompassing package. I'm hoping that like people resonate with it, and play data shows that people are liking it, and then maybe we get something. Because like for anyone who hasn't played Puzzle League, it is, to your point, Angel, one of the simpler puzzle games. You have a series of blocks. They rise up from the bottom. They stack kind of haphazardly. And it's up to you using a 2-block cursor to switch the places of any 2 blocks horizontally, which can then form vertical or horizontal chains of 3 or more. So the 3-block chains will simply remove them from the screen. The 4 or more block chains will send garbage blocks to your opponent's screen should you be playing a mode that has an opponent. And in the Super Nintendo Pound Upon, so the original here, that seems to mean just the multiplayer mode. In later puzzle leagues, it became a core tenet or component of the game, but in the initial, it was just that one mode. But the single player modes are still a lot of fun. Like it's actually pretty packed in terms of content. There's a full story mode. It's the third option down for those who can't read Japanese and are looking at the menu of the game. But you just do these sets of 5 puzzle screens with the goal of making it so no blocks are above a certain clear line, and you have to kind of chain them out. And it starts off pretty easy, but like there's a small uptick in speed and the number of blocks at the start as you go, but then about halfway through it just like out of nowhere ramps up like crazy. So there's some challenge there. And then on top of that, there's a puzzle mode with certain clear conditions. There's like a versus mode against CPU opponents. There's an endless mode. There's a time trial mode, both of which you can set the difficulty and speed yourself, depending on how difficult you want it. And that's kind of thing is like, even though it's a simple puzzler in terms of mechanics, it can get intense the second you get past those certain speed or difficulty thresholds. And I think that the cool thing is not only do you have this deep of a puzzle game inside, a free software thing that comes with our subscriptions, but you also have it online for one of the first times because, Switch Online works with people remotely. So you can do 2-player with a friend online, which just makes me really want them to do a Pound Upon 99. I mean, it would be perfect after Tetris 99. Same structure for unlocking skins, have the garbage blocks spill over, set combo chains to KO opponents. Like, it could totally work. And I'd love for them to try it. And I'm really hoping that, like, they actually do it and people play Pound Upon and there's enough of a attention on it that it can actually happen. But as it is right now, it's just a cool free little surprise that they put out 4 days ago, and I'm loving. And like between Tetris 99, because you were saying, Angel, if you're like Jason who really likes these types of games, like between Tetris 99 and Pound Upon, like this is, I don't know if I'd go as bold as to say this is the best Nintendo system ever off that alone, but I can't think of a time that there's been such good iterations of both of these games on the same platform at once. Like when Tetris is strong, Pound Upon's either not there or weak. When Pound Upon is strong, Tetris is weak. So this is really kind of like the match made in heaven if you're into these sorts of games, to have them on one system, both free. So yeah, so that's Pound Upon why I'm super into it. But yes, ultimately, if you don't play many puzzle games, it's kind of one and the same as some of the others. I get what you're saying, but it's great if you do play puzzle games. But beyond just the classic Super Nintendo stuff, Angel, you've been playing a little Lonely Mountain Downhill, right? From the gang over at Thunderful.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised I found this game. Just randomly ran into it, and I don't know, the art style is, just kind of caught my attention. It looks like the Polygon team from like Smash 64 decided to take a mountain vacation with their mountain bikes, but it's a simple arcade game. You essentially just pick a path or a bike trail, and you're just going downhill. And the point of the game, or I guess like what makes it challenging, is you're supposed to watch for your momentum. You don't want to go too fast, or you'll fall off the mountain and die, or you'll crash and die. Essentially, it's very easy to die, and dying just gets you put back in the beginning of the level. And there are checkpoints along the way, because the tracks take about 3 minutes to complete, but you're really going to spend more like 5 or 6 minutes on them just because it's so easy to die. But part of the fun is discovering all these other shortcuts. Like, sometimes the shortcuts are, I guess for lack of a better term, telegraphed to you. Like, you'll see the main path winding down, but you'll see some patch of green going along the side of the cliff where you would think you would die. But really, that's just kind of telling you, oh, this is a shortcut. So I'm guessing later levels probably won't be as obvious. But it is fun finding those shortcuts and managing to not have your biker crash and die before you land on the safe spot. And it definitely feels like a game that I'm going to go back to a lot just because it has a lot of replay value. like the one track or bike trail that I did, even though it took me like maybe 4 minutes the first time I played it, after you beat it, you unlock challenges for it that you could do simultaneously. You could choose to beat it in under 3 minutes while also trying to crash less than 21 times. And I was able to complete that, and you unlock obviously different bike parts, different outfits, different helmets, just stuff for cosmetics, because there isn't really that much else to the game. But right now, like in the quote-unquote expert trial that I'm in, I have to complete the course while crashing less than 7 times and beating it in under 2 minutes. And depending on the mode you're in, sometimes there's some variations where you have to go through every single checkpoint. If you skip a checkpoint, then even if you manage to survive going downhill a ton without dying and you get to the next checkpoint, none of them will count anymore, because the object of the game was to actually go through each one. But there is another mode you could play where you go through that same bike trail, but this time it's just about getting to the ending. But there are also no checkpoints, so if you die moments before the end, you're going to have to start all over from the very beginning.
Oh, jeez. Does it show you where you die, like Mario Maker or like Dark Souls does? Like, does it have a little marker where you pass the point you died and there's like a little X or anything?
No, I don't. No, not that I noticed. It just starts you back from the beginning.
Like, I feel like games like that, where it's all about like repetition. I feel like that's all.
Yeah, because this one is definitely about. Because this one is definitely about just having those trials those trails memorized so that you can essentially BMX your way down it. But
right.
It's really fun. It's kind of relaxing too, just because there's no soundtrack. It's just kind of ambient forest noises because you are in the woods, and the controls are. It's going to be really weird depending on your preferred playstyle, but essentially you accelerate with ZR, and you brake with ZL, and then you could hold down A to do a boost to just pedal way faster to pick up speed or do jump over gaps, or maybe just to save some time. But the part that might get some people is that it's at an isometric view, so the camera's pointing at a downwards angle from above, and it never shifts from that. So it's always from the same angle coming down. So you can either control the bike by moving left and right, which will move it from the perspective of the biker. So since the biker is most of the time biking towards you, essentially the controls are inverse. But as he's turning away from you, pretty much their only left is actually only left when the biker is facing away from you. Every other time you're just going to have to remember that left is sometimes up, down, left, or right.
Huh.
But I'm used to that kind of control scheme a lot more. So I feel that's my preferred way to play. It just makes way more sense to me. The other control method is pretty much the biker will go in the direction you point. So up is up, down is down, left is left, and right is right. But that, for some reason, just feels less intuitive to me. Just because it feels weird where, like, if I'm holding right on the analog stick, I expect the biker to go in circles because I'm just turning right on the steering wheel. But if you use the other control method where left is left and right is right and up is up, if you just hold right the whole time, he will keep biking right. So you have to remember, like, so if there's like a right turn coming up, you don't just hold right to do the right turn. You have to essentially hold down and to the left.
You have to arc the stick as he arcs his wheel.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
It feels
weird.
The wheel versus the handlebar.
Yeah, you're essentially tracing the path if you're doing one control method, and the other one you're literally controlling the handlebar, which I guess is the easiest way to explain it.
Or I guess a decent analogy would be like ball cam versus not ball cam in Rocket League. Like, one is you're fixated on one point, and that's what the controls orbit around, and one is it just stays the same way. Right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah. Essentially, try both, but it's fun. The only thing is that it's $20, but I mean, if it's a fun game that I feel I am actually like motivated to complete everything and try to beat all the challenges, so I'm sure I'm gonna get my money's worth and time worth.
Like, is there a lot of challenges?
The challenges are hard, and there's like a bunch of different bike trails. Like, just the trail that I'm on right now, I know I'm gonna have to play it so many times already just to unlock everything, and just to get through the final challenge, which is getting through the whole trail without any checkpoints. Like, that's already gonna be a nightmare, but in a fun way, in a fun, challenging way.
Mm-hmm.
Just because if I'm able to do that, that's gonna feel amazing to get through that whole path without dying one time. Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if it's on sale, I feel like it's an easier recommendation. But because I feel like most people are just gonna play a few times and that's gonna be it. And if you're just gonna do that, then you're just gonna be wasting $20. But
so you have to be dedicated to these trails.
yeah, but I mean, it's solid. I mean, the frame rate kind of stutters a little bit sometimes, but other than that, it's a pretty solid game. I
feel
like
like it kind of came out of nowhere. Like I remember them announcing it a long time ago, along with a few other of these sort of like physicsy bike games. There's like 2 BMX games like this on Switch, and then there's Trials, which is a little more stunt based.
Yeah, that one you have to worry more about, like also shifting your body forward and back.
Right.
This one you definitely don't have to. You're literally just worried about picking up too much speed and maybe going slow down incline so you don't fly off.
So it's more about inertia than it is.
Yeah, it's more inertia than positioning. Although there is some of that, but you don't really have to worry about that too much.
Right. But yeah, it's just fun because like those were the ones that were dominating the conversation for so long, and then out of nowhere they're just like, oh hey, Lonely Mountains is finally out, and then it's like the one that's getting all the praise now. So it's good. That's a good game. It's just kind of funny how that unfolded.
Yeah.
So I guess
Thunderful too. So.
What was that?
And Thunderful's associated in some ways, and they're pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they do good stuff. SteamWorld.
I don't know. Did they make this game? Because I know, like, ever since they became Thunderful, they've pretty much become a publisher. So
yeah, because Thunderful is Image and Form and Zoink combined to make a publishing house called Thunderful, and they're basically an indie publisher now that is comprised of those 2 sub companies.
So they're like a Revolver Digital then?
Yeah, or like
Devolver?
Yeah, or like a Raw Fury or a Tiny Build, or they're kind of one of those like publishing houses as well as making their own games. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, at least that's from my understanding. But that's good. That's good because it looks cool. I like the art style. The polygon guys from Smash 64 is a pretty good analogy.
Oh yeah, it doesn't feel a little play. I mean, it's just a nice art style. It's a nice chill game to unwind with.
Yeah, I've had the opposite of that experience. I've had the opposite of chill. I mean, I guess Panel de Pon was chill for me, but like I've been playing Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 Plus, and it is definitely the opposite of chill. I mean, I guess if the Super Nintendo games were our old and Lonely Mountains was our new, this is literally the something old, something new because it's a little of everything. And I've heard good things about the series, but what finally got me to take the plunge is that it's on sale for only $6 right now in the eShop versus the usual MSRP of $20. And the thing that really stuck out to me is it's interesting how it differs from the regular Pac-Man and how similar it is. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't need to explain the basic premise of Pac-Man, but you're going around maze, collecting pellets while dodging ghosts. If you've gone to walk outside in like the last 2 months, that's basically what you're doing in real life when you see humans on the street and you're trying to avoid them for the 6-foot social distancing. It's that, but the point is, like, Pac-Man's very reactionary based, right? So for Championship Edition, that still holds true, but everything is just like faster and crazier. Like the best way I can describe it is like if you imagine the peak of like Pac-Man fever in the 80s and like everyone inside Pac-Man just hopped up on cocaine, like that's basically what this game is. Like you're still moving around a maze, but you're doing it at like double speed. And it's so fast, in fact, that they now have to implement a braking mechanic that will stop Pac-Man in his tracks. And they have to have a cornering mechanic. So you can, if you tilt the stick as you turn on the maze corner, you'll get to make that turn faster, and little sparks will shoot out of Pac-Man while you do it. And the whole, like, the drug analogy actually works even better because the whole thing's also a little trippy. Like, scattered around the mazes are these sleeping ghosts that when you pass them, they'll awaken and start to form chains with the 4 main ghosts. So, Inky, Blinky, Pinky, Clyde. I'm only listing them to show that I know I can. But anyway, these ghosts, they form these chains, or they're called ghost trains in the game. And they begin to block more and more of Pac-Man's path as you zip around. And then adding to the frenzy of that is every time you awaken them, Pac-Man himself will speed up a smidge, which makes it incredibly satisfying when ultimately you get a power pellet and the tables turn, and now you're chasing these huge chains of ghosts. And when you nab one, there's this big, flashy, neon-drenched like little cinematic that plays with Pac-Man gobbling all the way up the chain, which sounded like the heaviest, most rumbly HD rumble I think I've ever experienced on the Switch, and it's really just satisfying. But yeah, it's really those ghosts and their trains that like keep the reactionary feel of classic Pac-Man in here just amped up a few notches, because by the time you're at like a top speed, it's not reactionary in the way a normal Pac-Man is. It's more of a twitch gameplay. This is especially true when the ghost trains are in full effect because they can dodge you incredibly fast. So you need to think in nanoseconds, really, where they may next turn around and try to head them off, because it's actually only the head of the train that you can eat the whole train. It's the only way to like proceed with his, I don't know, is it a feeding process? I guess a feeding process for Pac-Man. You have to hit him head on, meaning if there are these 30 ghost long trains, you have to figure out exactly where they're moving and be one step ahead of them all in milliseconds. And for me, honestly, sometimes that proves to be a little more difficult. Like, I've never been the best at the super fast reaction twitchy gameplay, but one thing I do appreciate about Championship Edition is that the twitchiness is only a component of it. Like, interestingly, the mazes themselves are not a free-for-all pellet fest like you would get at a normal Pac-Man. So you're not constantly reacting in the same way you would with a normal Pac-Man, but at slower speed. Like, yes, you still need to dodge ghosts, but the game's developers have kind of laid out the pellets in very, very specific patterns that are optimal ways to follow through the maze. So, I haven't, to give you a sense of what I mean, there's not a single maze I've encountered yet where the entire maze has pellets. It's basically preset paths you can go down of pellets. And while you can still hit ghosts potentially, you actually get a few bonks before they become angry and can kill you. So you do get a chance to sort of build momentum up to the twitchy parts, and then those just feel that much more rewarding when you pull them off, or if you're like me, that much more frustrating when you can't pull them off. But yeah, it's a really interesting experience, and I think on some level, the fact that it is so twitchy for me can be sometimes the game's downfall, because I can often get the trains built no problem and learn the optimal pellet path over a few playthroughs. Like, there are multiple paths on the maze. It's not like there's only one path, but you kind of figure out which turns to take. It's similar to what you're saying actually about downhill, where you do it multiple times, you kind of learn the course. But then when it comes time to catch the ghost trains, the time limits are so short, especially in adventure mode. And again, they do that, to make it more frenzied. But the time limits are so short that one or two wrong twitches on my part, and I've essentially wasted all the buildup I did so well to get to that point. So for some folks, I mean, it sounds like Angel, how you're describing downhill, that won't be a problem. But it can be a bit annoying if you don't want to have to go through that all the time, like for me. But when I do pull it off, oh yeah, it's great when I pull it off. And the game does include a few different ways to sort of reach that twitchy bliss. I mentioned there's an adventure mode. In that you can do different criteria you have to meet, like eat 6 fruit or destroy all the ghost trains 2 times over with 2 power pellets. There's of course a standard attack mode. Then in a whole separately branded game within the collection, there's a full co-op mode with entirely different mechanics, such as a one-hit kill by ghosts, which is more like the old Pac-Man, instead of letting you bounce off them. And there are boss battles, and there's a jump button, and there's all these different things. And if I'm not mistaken, the co-op mode I think is new to just the Switch version, so it is something kind of catered to the fact that you have 2 controllers with you at all times. So really, I guess what I'm getting at with Pac-Man is it boils down to if you like twitchy, fast-paced arcade gameplay, Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 Plus delivers in spades. It's visually really cool, and how it mixes classic 2D Pac-Man with 3D elements and different camera angles, and the shake-ups of the formula make it really fresh while also still familiar. Plus, as I was saying up top, it's only $6 right now, so that's a lot of content for $6. It's a steal at $6. But yeah, if you're not, much like downhill, if you don't think you're going to necessarily invest the time in repeating the same levels and learning the exact flow of which pellets to go to, and then being able to be good at the twitchiness on top of that, even at $6, it may not be your cup of tea. But I'm having fun with it, even when frustrated. It never makes me angry. I'm just kind of okay, I can do this, and that sort of thing. So
for $6, that sounds really good. But
yeah, no, it's great for $6. Yeah, and they're doing it for $6 right now, because I don't know if you guys realize, but it's Friday. This past Friday was Pac-Man's 40th anniversary. He old, and yeah, I'm happy I was able to get the game on sale as a result. But I feel like they kind of missed the opportunity. Bandai Namco could have done so much more for a 40th anniversary. I feel like they kind of underplayed it. You know what I mean? The most they did was a sale, and they announced a couple things. But for me, at least,
what were you expecting?
When they did the 20th anniversary, they announced Pac-Man.
Pac-Man movie?
No, when they did the 20th anniversary, that's when they did Pac-Man World. That was, let me tell you about Pac-Man World. Pac-Man World 2 specifically on GameCube, I'd say is vastly underrated. It's I loved that game when I was younger. It's basically Pac-Man and Crash Bandicoot kind of combined. Like, you spend a lot of time platforming in a kind of linear way into the screen, but every level would have sort of like a mini Pac-Man maze you have to do, and the enemies still require you to eat a power pellet, and then there were boss battles, and each world had like typical platformer tropes like an ice world, a fire world, and Pac-Man had Mario 64's like ground pound move, and yeah, I don't know.
And
I don't
you
know what I
wanted
loved about the
something
game.
on that level?
Well, no, I'm just saying something. I'm saying something new or different. Like, they didn't do anything. They just discounted some games. I mean, the closest they came to it was they announced three partnerships for Pac-Man on Friday. One was this one's actually really kind of crazy. NVIDIA has AI that has built a full-fledged interactive Pac-Man maze that is playable completely from scratch. The AI watched Pac-Man and then built Pac-Man, and it works, which is like impressive and also kind of scary in terms of like when robots eventually come and kill us all. But they did that. They announced that Pac-Man DLCs in Minecraft, and then they announced on Twitch of all places Pac-Man Live Studio, which it's sort of cut from the same cloth as Pac-Man Versus, if you guys remember that from the GameCube, or even kind of how Championship Edition is like divides, like take a classic Pac-Man game and just do something on top of it. So inside a Pac-Man Twitch channel, you and friends can play together on one maze. Only one of you needs to win to move on to the next maze, and then you can basically co-op your way through Pac-Man, or you can just build your own mazes with a maze creator. So it's kind of a neat concept,
pretty cool.
But it's inside Twitch, which is interesting. And the thing that I'm sort of like, I don't know, is all the screenshots of custom mazes look way more basic than even the most basic regular Pac-Man maze. Like, they look more tamer or simpler, or I don't know. So, like, that's kind of in the
let
vein
people
of what I
get
was
used to
thinking.
it. It's only been how many days since that
No. I mean the official screenshots from Bandai Namco.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, but the whatever Nintendo would show from Mario Maker is going to be way more simplistic than whatever somebody will
That's
do
true.
with the
I'll give you
tool
that.
set.
That's true.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I've
That's
never
a
really
fair
been
point.
impressed by the stuff they show, more just like the tools that they had.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that one. But yeah, it so I guess in a way, maybe I'm just not looking at it through the right lens, because I'm like, oh, it's on Twitch, it's not really a thing, but it is a thing. Twitch is huge. So maybe Pac-Man Live Studio is the new Pac-Man World answer. But yeah, I don't know why. Whoops, I lost my headphone there. I just say I don't know why I liked Pac-Man World 2 so much. Like, I just kept coming back to it. Like, I never owned it, but I kept renting it from Blockbuster over and over as a kid, kind of like I did with Rush. And it's like, it's one of the few games I actually beat all the way through. So I don't really know what it is, but it's in my head. It's like if SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom can get a remaster. I don't know why Namco doesn't just take Pac-Man World 1, 2, 3 and throw them on Switch or something.
Well, because I think it's probably you're the only person that wants Pac-Man World 1, 2, 3,
maybe.
And like, you want it unironically. People ironically want Battle for Bikini Bottom.
I know.
So.
I want it unironically. I know I don't make sense. I don't know why. There's something about Pac-Man in general for me that I don't like. Most people are like, oh, the guy in the mazes, but like, I associate him with Pac-Man World 2, and I associate him with my local arcade in Montana, which was a cyber station when I was a kid, and he was the mascot. Namco used to own arcades, like full on, like a whole chain of them, and I have from back then.
I mean, I'm sure they still do in Japan, right?
Oh yeah, in Japan, but like, if you think about it now in the U.S., that's weird that Namco had arcades, Sega had arcades, Capcom had arcades. It's like a bygone time. But I have so much random. I do all the ticket games and stuff, and I have like a fanny pack with Pac-Man on it, like a pencil sharpener.
Oh God, you were one of those kids.
I didn't wear the fanny pack. I just got it with the tickets. An eraser. I have a bunch of leftover tokens that have like the old Pac-Man, like pizza pie with the slice missing thing in the gold on the token, which is pretty cool actually. And like, I used to like legitimately have my birthdays there when I was a kid. We didn't have Chuck E. Cheese, so we'd go there. They had a table in the back. You rent it. You go play arcade games. And
way in the back.
And then elsewhere in the mall, there'd be a place called Bob's Pizza, and they would deliver pizza into the arcade. Is basically Chuck E. Cheese, but not. So yeah, like, all my Pac-Man associations are like these weird things that aren't what Pac-Man's actually about. It's very strange now that I think about it. But
yeah, I think you
like,
definitely had a way different experience with Pac-Man growing up.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's so weird. Like, what would your guys' Pac-Man experience? Am I that off kilter here? It sounds like I am.
Just the arcade, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. The most recent time that I probably played Pac-Man was from Namco Studio on the PS2. That's probably.
Did you guys not play any of the DS spin-offs like Pac Pix or Pack and Roll?
No.
I played Pac-Pix, and that's about it. But even I don't know.
Pac-Pix was a glorified tech demo, to be honest, but it was kind of a neat concept.
Yeah, I played Pac-Pix. I briefly played the point-and-click adventure one. I think it was like Pac-Man, maybe Adventure on the SNES. But yeah, that felt terrible.
Oh, that's not true.
Maybe, I mean, it could have been
Championship Edition. But
You played which?
the first
Championship.
yeah, the original.
I think I played more Miss Pac-Man than Pac-Man, but I mean, they're basically the same thing.
Miss Pac-Man is one of the few games that my mom actually claims she played and was good at. Granted, way back in the day, but yeah, it's
She meant last week.
I was never good at Pac-Man. Or Miss Pac-Man. That's why I never really played it. I was more of a Galaga person.
Oh, interesting. See, I was never really a Galaga person. I was more a Pac-Man person.
Ew.
But where do we stand on Dig Dug?
Dig Dug's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of my attitude.
It's okay in very short bursts.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there. Also, Mr. Driller, I feel like, is like the weird puzzle sequel to Dig Dug. They both go down, basically.
Did you guys ever play Pix the Cat?
That sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't think I actually played it. But I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was like it was definitely Pac-Man.
The white cat, right?
What happened? It was like a neon cat. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Well, now I understand why I was like, why aren't they doing more for the 4th anniversary? You guys are like, what would they do? Because like I apparently had a really Pac-Man heavy childhood compared to the average person.
Yeah, I'm sure a bunch of 30-year-olds in Montana are probably wondering the same thing.
Yeah, they probably are. I really hope so. Cyber Station was great. I mean, that's where like I used to go to that place all the time because there was a ton to do. Like that's where I played Crazy Taxi for the first time, the Cruisin' series, the Rush series, Arctic Thunder, Hydro Thunder. Like it was great. Did you guys have like an arcade you used to like go to as a kid? Or am I also weird on that? Or do you just go to Disney because we live in LA and you guys always lived in LA?
No, the closest that I ever got to
more theme parks than anything.
The closest I ever got to an arcade was when like supermarkets used to have arcade machines. I remember playing a bunch of like Tekken and Galaga there, but never a full arcade. The most recent time that I went to arcade, aside from Japan, was I would go all the way to Diamond Bar. For this one for this one arcade called Arcade Infinity, because they had a bunch of Japanese fighting games there. But,
there's
rest in peace, Arcade Infinity.
Beach, right over here until a couple months ago in Redondo Beach, they had an arcade under the pier and it was huge. It had old games and new games and even some rides. Surprised you went all the way to Diamond Bar versus just like across the 105.
What? So where again?
Under the pier in Redondo Beach. They just closed it. It was called like Funland or Playland or something like that. But they had like, I don't know, like 40 machines.
Oh, well, don't get me wrong. The round one in Lakewood has like all the games that Arcade Infinity had. So not missing.
Yeah, even a lot of stuff from Japan.
Yeah,
they're just getting more and more.
Round one's actually pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
And there's also the round one by Little Tokyo that has a lot.
Should we go to round one these days?
Once we're allowed.
Yeah, once we're allowed.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
Actually, no. Arcades will probably become a cesspool of disease.
Yeah.
I don't really want to touch anything.
What you gotta do is just like wear plastic gloves and change them between every game.
Yeah.
And don't touch your face. But yeah, we'll wait till it's safe. But I'd be down because the thing is like we've all collectively been to Dave & Buster's I think together, and like I guess you guys know the point of reference. But Cyber Station for me was literally Dave & Buster's just without alcohol or food. Like think about like roughly maybe not that size, but that variety of games and stuff. Well, no, you're a kid. It's fun. I mean, it's like a kid's go to Dave & Buster's.
Yeah, but kids also like food. What?
Well, you could get food in the mall. It was in a mall. That's how the pizza was delivered. They just didn't have their own food, which is good because most arcade food sucks.
Interesting.
Frankly. So yeah, so you like go get like a Wetzel pretzel or Auntie Annie. I think we had, and then you just go to the arcade. Or Jamba Juice. Oh, we didn't have Jamba Juice. We had Junga Juice. It was a knockoff. But yeah, I'm getting
juice?
Junga, and its mascot was a purple gorilla.
Huh.
Yeah, it was run by the students that were at the University of Montana. Like they founded it, and
of course it was.
Yep. But yeah, it's pretty good. Like, I'm telling you.
It's like you lived in a different world.
That's probably why. Yeah, it really sounds like it. I feel like I was in like feel like I'm straight out like whichever season of Stranger Things it was when they were always in the arcade. That was basically me, but with 90s games. Anyway, point is, Pac-Man World 2, us Montanans, we're gonna make it happen. But yeah, this does. We were talking about new announcements, so I guess it kind of transitions us into actual news pretty well because we're talking about new takes on old franchises. How about that Paper Mario for Switch, or as it's officially called, Paper Mario: The Origami King, which I feel like is missing an "and."
I think it's cool that a new Paper Mario is getting released soon, but just gonna wait until I hear anything more specific about the fighting mechanics before I can get excited or not. Because even what's on the site, like it just says, "Oh, line up the characters and attack." I mean, doesn't really say much. It could still go either way.
There's an 18-second clip of the battles floating around, and so the characters are on a ring, they're on. It's like a circle with 3 rings, and you rotate the rings to get the characters as close together in a single line, and you only have a certain number of spins or something. It looks like, and then from there it jumps into turn-based battles. But whether that means it has traditional RPG tropes or not, I don't know. I mean, the rumor was this was gonna go back to the roots a little, but it's really hard to tell. At this point, all we know is it has rings, and Mario has a move that makes him look like an ARMS character. But
I mean, it looks closer to Thousand Year Door and Paper Mario than it does to Sticker Star or Color Splash. Yeah. So, I mean, we're headed in the right direction.
It is interesting how and actually before I would say that, I just not only we're heading in the right direction that way, I feel like we're heading in the right direction aesthetic wise as well, because all the Paper Marios did a good job of representing whatever mechanic they came up with. The paint looked great in HD and Color Splash. The perforated cardboard looked spectacular in 3D on the 3DS, but it is kind of nice that it's actually origami, something that's actually intricate, opposed to just here's a splash of paint and
something to do with paper.
Yeah, exactly. This is cool because it actually looks really nice. I guess probably the prettiest Paper Mario has ever looked. But I do think, to your point about moving back, it is. Where do you guys stand actually with Paper Mario? Is the be all end all for you the original and Thousand Year Door, or did you guys when it started drifting into the puzzle adventure game that eventually became? Where did it lose you, or where did it demote?
I mean, I guess Sticker Star, because one, I thought 1 was great, 2 was amazing, 3 was so different that it was its own thing that I felt like you couldn't really compare to say it's better or worse because it's just so different. Mm-hmm. But then Sticker Star felt like aesthetically it was really cool, but everything else looked like it was just dumbed down drastically. No longer did it involve brand new characters. It was just the bare minimum you could think of. And then the combat was just disappointing beyond belief, just because any attack you do is a one and done only thing. Every single attack was a one and done. You had to go buy your attacks, which was a horrible mechanic because it just it makes you not want to attack when you go into random encounters. And then you also have these real life objects that you can also use to attack, which just end up making a lot of boss fights irrelevant. I get it. It's supposed to be a puzzle. Oh, you have a giant fan. For example, let's just say there's a fire monster enemy. You can use the fan to blow them away and instantly kill them. I mean, I don't know. There was the game was already easy enough as it is. It didn't need that. I mean, at least the boss fight with Bowser was interesting. He looked really cool as one of those holographic stickers. I mean, most of the bosses were like that. Those ones you pay $1 for and you get them out of the machine, and they're usually fake Pokemon cards. But yeah, everything else about that was just disappointing.
I do think,
and then
kind of
Color Splash also Color Splash, I guess, went backwards a little. It kind of did a little better. Not all attacks were one and dones, but it was still card based. It I don't know. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. No, that was Sticker Star.
Color Splash to me is the Thousand Year Door of Sticker Star. They took one
but that's
system and then elaborated on it. But what's weird is you made an interesting point. Well, actually, before I even get to my point, Kevin, where do you stand on it? Are you kind of in agreement with Angel that it sort of lost its way after Super?
Yeah, absolutely. Super Paper Mario was, it was divisive, but I don't think anybody can say that it was a bad game. Maybe it was a bad game in terms of compared to the RPGness of the original Thousand Year Door, but Super Paper Mario was I think was great. I didn't pick Sticker Star up because of the things that you guys had said on the podcast.
Right.
And
wow, we cost Nintendo a sale. Look at that.
Yeah, right. And then I never had a Wii U, so I never got Color Splash. But I mean, I was probably not even going to get it, considering that it was basically Sticker Star 2. And are we counting Paper Jam?
No, I count that as a Mario and Luigi.
That's more of a Mario and Luigi game,
okay.
which in a way makes it the best RPG. Paper Mario game. Well, this makes it the best Paper Mario game in recent years. Just because, I mean, you could tell Nintendo was straight up trying to make Paper Mario its own thing because they didn't want to have two RPG series. Like, so, yeah, they almost tried to de-emphasize the RPG-ness.
Yeah, that's actually what you guys are saying. Exactly what I was thinking, is especially the Kirby analogy that you kind of slipped in there just then, Kevin, is that, I think in a weird way, because, we were all saying Super Paper Mario was good but different, and I think Paper Mario is a victim of its own Super Paper Mario success, where they had these concurrent games, like you're saying, Angel, and then at some point they're like, well, what if we try something different with Super Paper Mario? Like, what if instead of RPGs being the RPG mechanics being at the forefront, we put the gimmick, so to speak, at the forefront? So like now it's about like the Z-axis and flipping things and that sort of thing. And then, well, if we do that, how's that work? Well, maybe it should be a platformer. Okay, but we keep some traditional RPG elements. So it still had, if I remember correctly, still collected experience when you did battles and things like that. And then it did well enough, and Mario and Luigi was chugging along well enough that I think Nintendo was just like, well, we can have two parallel tracks here, and we can just do what we did with Super Paper Mario more so. Like over 1 million or 2 or however many million copies of Super Paper Mario sold, people are cool with this. Let's just keep going down that road. So then they took what worked with Super Paper Mario, the exploration, the puzzles, a lighter battle system, and it just doubled down on that. And that's how Sticker Star became this thing where it was level-based, non-overarching world. It was about finding stickers hidden, just like it's about, platforming is about like getting through a level and exploring the nooks and crannies. And the battling, they're like, well, if we're going this way, do we need the RPG elements? Mario and Luigi's got that covered. So they sort of just pulled those out. And I think they thought everyone would be cool with that, but then not everyone was cool with that. Most people weren't cool with that. So then Color Splash was them, like I was saying, 1,000 Year Dooring it. So they kind of like, okay, well, how do we like improve this based on the feedback? Well, we can make battles worthwhile again. Sometimes you actually need to do them. There's actually reasons to do them. We can maybe instead of random stickers, you have like a hand of cards on the gamepad. That'd be kind of cool. And that's like picking your attacks. That could work. That's a little more than what Sticker Star offered. And then they kind of iterated on that, and people still weren't happy. So now I don't know where this one's gonna go. But if Mario and Luigi's kind of in hiatus with Alpha Dream supposedly being bankrupt, perhaps this is the chance for them to kind of fold it back into RPGs. I don't know, but it is interesting to like watch the trajectory of it, and kind of you can see exactly where they started easing up on some mechanics and started pushing forward on other mechanics. Like it's almost like perfectly, like it's like a scale and almost perfectly tips the other way.
I don't know. It looks great, but yeah, like what Angel said, unless we get a real deep dive on the combat, I'm not getting my hopes too high.
Right.
Just because
Ghost of Tsushima comes out the same day, so
that's true. And that's who would have thought July used to be the dead month for games?
And yeah, doesn't Last of Us 2 come out like 2 days after or something like that?
Something like that.
Damn.
Yeah.
What a
big
month.
It's a big month for gaming. Yeah. It's but yeah, I do think like I feel like on some level, Sticker Star and Color Splash kind of get a bad rap because if they were their own thing from the start, like the Kirby analogy, like if they were just these independent weird little Mario games and basically it was Scavenger Hunt, the video game, they achieve that goal. They do it well, and Color Splash goes above and beyond in that regard. It has much better writing, like it has thing's really cool.
Like what it did.
The problem is they stuck a name on it that implied something else. That's where they went wrong.
Yeah, I mean they definitely, I would say, achieved what they wanted, what they set out to do extremely well.
Just what no one else wanted.
It was, it just wasn't interesting.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see where Paper Mario goes. But so is it really gonna be the battle system making or breaking it for you guys?
Oh, yeah. I'll probably buy it regardless, but I doubt that I'll beat it if it doesn't have great combat system.
Right. I did.
Yeah, I could only carry it so far because I know Obis played Color Splash a pretty good amount, but eventually they just lost interest.
Right. I do know at least one thing because of that 18-second video. It looks like some moves will not have like move counts, or you'll be able to do an unlimited amount, like jumping and stuff like that won't be tied to an attack system in terms of you have to have a certain number of PP or whatever they call it in the game, or paint in Color Splash. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think beyond just the game of Paper Mario, the other component of the whole Origami King thing was the announcement itself, which just kind of happened.
Yeah, like, there's no fanfare. It was just
no direct.
I woke up one day, looked at Twitter. Oh, there's a new Paper Mario game out.
And it's out in 8 weeks.
Yeah,
it's not just it's like such a quick turnaround, and it's really a strategy that I think Nintendo's been honing for a while. Like the idea of replacing these multiple waves of hype with a much shorter cycle. Like you may recall, way back in the Wii days, they tried this with something similar with Excitebots, which was the excellent sequel to the already excellent Excite Truck, and they went from announcement to release in I think 3 months, and it completely bombed. Just absolutely bombed. Like it sold like 3,000 copies its first month or something. Like it did horrible.
This is the first time I'm ever hearing about this game. Excitebots?
Really?
Yep.
Excitebots. Yeah. Do you know Excite Truck from the Wii?
Yeah, I know Excite Truck.
So take that, turn the trucks into these weird robots that like do weird things as you race. So basically how Excite Truck works is you drive and you do stunts, and the stunts give you ratings. The trucks were turned into robots that look like animals kind of, and the stunts were turned into absurd things. So like get a bowling strike, build a sandwich, like all this random stuff as you're playing, but it had the same basic mechanics as Excite Truck. It was just like on steroids, and it had online play, and it sold like not well at all. On some
one of those things that really embraces it being a video game.
Yeah, and it's great for it. Although on some levels I do sometimes prefer the simplicity of Excite Truck, but Excite Bots was just so like wacky. It was great. But the bummer was because Nintendo, announced it how they did at a time when I guess the world wasn't ready, it bombed. And I think whether a direct result of that or not, for much of the Wii U
Hold on. The world wasn't ready for Excitebots?
No, the world wasn't ready for a game being announced and released that quickly. Like the hype cycles weren't attuned.
I was going to say,
whoa, Kevin, the world was not ready for Excitebots. Everybody should have been ready for
Excitebots.
The world was not ready for Excitebots. But whether a direct result of that or not, like I think the Wii U days was like when Nintendo did a complete like 180, and everything was announced so far in advance with so much information for months and months. Like I know, Angel, you hated how much Mario Kart 8 was talked about, or the 45-minute direct walking through every single menu detail.
They literally left nothing to discover.
Unturned. Yeah.
Nothing.
And like Pikmin 3, there were so many. But with I know even on the podcast, because obviously the news is the news, so we were talking about what's new with Pikmin 3, and I think it's like 5 episodes in a row. We're just like, oh yeah, so Pikmin 3. Did you know it has a map? And that's like, oh, Pikmin 3. Did you know it has a third character? But with Switch, it seems like they kind of start to experiment with that a bit more. So we certainly saw some games get way far in advance releases. Breath of the Wild 2 got the most teasing of teaser trailers at E3 last year. Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3, obviously years ago, we got the logos, and there's been zero follow-up, except in one case where they said, oh, wait, the game's not good, and had to restart it. But even still, like, now even, there's still longer promotional times, like Pokemon Sword and Shield. That's one that comes to mind, where they did wave after wave of news for what, like 8 months, 9 months. And they're doing it with the DLC, too. They announced in January, it's not until June and fall. But, much to, I think, your guys' happiness, I'd say that generally it really seems like Nintendo's starting to focus on games that come out in the next few months. Like initially that meant a game may be announced a year plus out, but not be detailed until the direct maybe 3 or so months before its release. But even within that, like games are getting much quicker turnarounds. I mean, Xenoblade Definitive Edition, that was announced way back in September 2019, but there's not a single detail given until March 26th, which was approximately 8 weeks before it's now coming out this coming Friday on the May 29th. Or Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the DX one for Switch. We didn't know that existed until January 9th, and it was out literally almost to the day 2 months later on March 6th. And now we have Paper Mario announced on May 14th, and sure enough, to the day, July 17th, almost to the day, July 17th. So they clearly seem to be developing some sort of turnaround pattern that's a lot shorter. And I'm not saying that every game's following this pattern, but I do think it's interesting that Nintendo has been able to lock in this rhythm partially because it really goes to show how much faster news travels in gaming now. Like back in the day, you needed a lot of lead time because, game magazines had to have time to do their write-ups and then mail out those write-ups in the magazine and then follow up with reviews. And then retail
that when Nintendo thought when
to...
they announced Metroid Prime 4?
No, but I'm saying it's sort of like a legacy structure that they were leaning on probably. And that was probably to get people to buy the Switch because it was still the first year. Wait, was it even the first year? Yeah, it was still the first year. So they were like, hey, we got Zelda, we got Mario, and guess what? We're soon going to have Metroid. Like, it's a, kind of a...
Whoa.
It's like, yeah, it's like recreating in 2002 when they did Sunshine, Wind Waker, and Metroid Prime all in about a 7-month stretch. Yeah, 2002, 2003, technically. But yeah, like, there's obviously, that legacy stuff. And also, like, retail buyers back in the day, they needed to know what games to stock for the holidays way in advance. That's why, like, E3 was in May for so many years, because they needed that lead time. But now, like, shadow drops are a thing, and games can do super well. I mean, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX, that was, like I said, announced in January, out in March. In the first 3 weeks of March, according to Nintendo, it still sold 1.26 million copies, like I was saying last episode. So clearly they don't need to do a whole rigmarole of announcements. They could just release it and have it sell well. And now with less marketing muscle pumped into it for months ahead of time, they can put some marketing up front and then actually sustain the marketing after launch. It's, the idea that a game's launch is the be-all, end-all of its success is kind of over now. I mean, think about all the games across all platforms that are like that. No Man's Sky had a really rocky launch, but it's now pretty big and rebounded.
I see what you did.
What?
No, I thought I see what you did.
Oh, I didn't even see what I did, but you're right. Yeah, or like Nintendo, they keep pushing their evergreens for years with TV commercials. They spent the most money of any game company on commercials in April, and they weren't all Animal Crossing. They definitely were not all Animal Crossing. Or, even like GTA 5, they have been on the top of the NPD chart, like in the top 20 now. For years. They've sold over 130 million copies. There are going to sell more GTA 5s than total PS2s were ever sold at some point. Like, just think about that. Like, the idea that you need to build towards day one, and then the game just kind of drops off after that is basically gone. So, 8 weeks for a game to be announced and released, that's totally plausible and reasonable.
That's
now,
pretty dope.
Like, which is, yeah. Like, I think it's better overall. I imagine you guys are on board with that.
Oh, absolutely. When they announced Fallout 4, it was released within the same year. Like, that was awesome. I didn't end up liking Fallout 4, but the idea that they were able to announce it in... Well, I mean, everybody knew that Fallout 4 was happening. Like, I don't think a lot of us knew that a new Paper Mario was happening. That, I mean, after that leak, sure, we were a little bit more convinced that it was happening, but, like, everybody knew Fallout 4 was happening, and then they announced it, and then to have it released within the same year was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's nice because, like, you don't string people along. Like, I mean, for Nintendo, it alleviates a lot of issues for them because, like, right now it gives them so much flexibility to shuffle their schedule because, if you don't publicly announce a game, you can't publicly delay a game. So there's no disappointment. There's no, like, reassuring fans. I'm sure, like, I appreciate that Nintendo's transparent when they announced the Metroid Prime 4 delay however long ago. But, like, that has got to be embarrassing for Nintendo to have done that. It's so much easier to just not announce things until it's closer to launch.
I did like it when they announced Rhythm Heaven and released it on the same day.
Right, like shadow drops. It's such a cool thing because then, like, you get to your point about knowing everything in advance with, like, the Smash and Mario Kart and Pikmin ones. You get to basically experience things for the first time and not even worry about someone spoiling it for you. Like, some games you need a little lead time. Like, obviously, like Last of Us 2 and the leaks of its plot. Like, that's not something that, like, could be avoided. There's no way they could shadow drop that game out of nowhere. I mean, I guess they could, but the shorter time there is between announcement and launch, the easier it is to avoid those sorts of pitfalls.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Well, okay, I should actually back this up. So about a week
a
ago,
AAA game getting shadow dropped?
No, I don't think they could do that. No, but I was gonna say, can you imagine, like,
here's Breath of the Wild 2 out now.
That would be crazy. Do you realize how much buzz it would get, though?
We actually finished it a couple months after that initial teaser.
And we've just been saying, well, Nintendo's notorious for that. They were sitting on the Switch port, supposedly, of New Super Mario Bros. U for a good while, as they were with Yoshi's Crafted World. They definitely sit on things till the timing's right. But I think for something like Last of Us 2, it's a little harder because it's such a big production. So, like, they need to, have a ramp-up campaign. But like, can you imagine if, Last of Us 2 dropped, or, like, there was this rumor about a week ago, not even a rumor, a report, a former Retro Studios employee. It was discovered that he uploaded some concept art to some account of his online for 2 potential spin-offs that Retro might have made. One was an action JRPG starring Sheik, set in the Ocarina of Time, like the dark timeline of Ocarina of Time, and it essentially told the origin.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
Right? It sounds cool. It would tell the origin story of the Master Sword, and it would follow him. Yes, he's a him in this game. As he went to go stop a Dark Gerudo tribe from summoning Ganon in some sort of new form, and that's how the sword was forged, and that would be the game. Like, that sounds cool. And then separately, Retro also had one where you play as Mario, like a Boo from Mario, and you learn how to scare people. I don't really know what that's about. But, like, can you imagine if Nintendo did the Metroid Prime 4 approach for, like, the Sheik spinoff? And it's just like, guys, get ready for a dark new JRPG style telling in the Zelda saga. And then they have a logo, and they do it at the Game Awards, and there's this whole thing. And then these games got canceled pretty quickly because the heads of Retro all left. So can you imagine if Nintendo did that? The heads of Retro leave, and they're sitting there like, well, we got to finish these, I guess. But then they don't have the talent that came up with it to actually see it through. Like, that's the sort of pitfall if they announce things way, way, way in advance. Because these sound awesome. Like, I'd be super interested in that Sheik game.
Yeah, absolutely. That Sheik game sounds really dope.
Yeah. And like, to Nintendo's credit, they wouldn't, they wouldn't announce the game off just concept art. But, like, presumably where they were at with Metroid Prime 4, Bayonetta 3, they were prototyping things and whatnot. So, like, if they were even in the prototyping phase and announced it. Like,
I forgot Bayonetta 3 was a thing.
Exactly. And, like, that's the thing. Like, these games were announced so long ago.
How far ago? Is it reaching the Last Guardian levels?
I think it was 2017.
No, God, no.
I'm checking. I think it was 2017.
What was the release, the timeline for Last Guardian?
It was 2018.
If any of you know off the top of your head.
Last Guardian.
I was right.
Oh man, I don't remember when it was announced. Like 2011 probably, and it got released 3 years ago.
Gee.
So Bayonetta was announced December 2017, which means Metroid Prime 4 was probably announced December 2016 at the end of the Switch's first year to drum up more interest. But can you imagine, like, if Nintendo did the, like, Dark Sheik coming in 2020, only to then in 2019 be like, just kidding. Like, the fact that they're moving away from that entirely is very good, I feel like.
Yeah. It's no Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, well, even that came out eventually for better.
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah, but that one spanned developers and I mean, recoup that.
Final Fantasy Versus 13 got announced, I think, when I was in 6th grade, and it took 9 years for a demo for Final Fantasy 15 to come out.
Yeah, and then there's the the will they won't they of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which obviously they finally jumped on, but that took a while.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, personally at least, like, this newer approach, like, the one advantage, I feel like the one advantage is it gives us stuff to, like, chew on while Nintendo figures out their next steps for the year. Because, like, I'd say my one through line for the last 3 or 4 episodes has been, like, every other game company seems to figure out what to do, but we don't know what Nintendo's doing, in the coronavirus times and everything. But now, like, we knew they were focusing on the now, like, focusing on Animal Crossing, on Evergreens, etc. But what works in their favor is the fact that their entire announcement structure has, on its own, independent of coronavirus, shifted to being one of the now as well. Means that, like, there's not really, like, there is no expectation anymore. Obviously, they're going to play it by ear, but, like, if they have now demonstrated 3 times in 1 year prior to coronavirus that they're just going to tell you things 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out. So I feel like a lot of my concerns about, like, oh, well, what's Nintendo doing? It's like, oh, they know what they're doing. They're just not telling us what they're doing, which is different than before when it was kind of just like, which is obviously my misconception, but then before it was kind of like, well, why don't they say anything? What's going on? We don't really know.
I mean, sometimes it is cool to hear about these projects really early because, I mean, it's before anything even has a chance to leak. But, yeah, then we get into all of this.
Well, that's kind of the thing, because it is, to your point about leaks, like, the one guarantee for the foreseeable future, courtesy of a leak, is that there are not going to be Nintendo Directs. VentureBeat, who first reported no June Direct and is very reliable, is saying that Nintendo's basically told its development partners, don't plan for any all-encompassing Direct showcase. Just do your own thing. We're just going to do what we did with Paper Mario. And then VentureBeat went on to say, so that means the Mario 3D collection is going to get one of these drops. The Switch version of Mario 3D World is going to get one of these drops. And then I think where you were angling, Angel, one that they threw in there randomly but is now a thing, a Switch version of Pikmin 3 is going to be one of these drops. So
that's going to be a really interesting one to bring over.
Yeah, the
one thing I loved about Pikmin 3 was its new control scheme. Like, I loved it so much. Like, I felt like you couldn't go back to it. I just love having, like, the gamepad on the side, using it as a map and as a way to micromanage all the other explorers. And even though the level design was disappointingly easy, that we were able to 100% the game in, like, no time. And, yeah, it left me extremely disappointed just because the gameplay was so fun, but everything else was so boring. But then the DLC came, and that was really, really cool. But without that gamepad, I don't know how they're going to do that on the Switch. I mean, besides just having it be a map you pop up, but then it's just not as intuitive. I don't know. Especially because you're now controlling 3 pilots. I felt like the gamepad was integral at that point. Like, they actually gave me a reason to make sure I have both, but I don't know.
I am curious how they're going to dance around that, because, I mean, I will never get over the irony of Nintendo, champions of simplified control schemes and casual-friendly interfaces, promoting a game where the best play setup on Pikmin 3 was one where you had a TV running the game, which you controlled with the pointer on a Wii Remote and Nunchuck, on a system that didn't come with either of those, while simultaneously setting up the controller it did come with, the Wii U gamepad, on a kickstand next to you so you can properly see its map while playing with other devices. In other words, 4 devices, 1 game, which is the antithesis of everything Nintendo stands for, but it did work really well. You're right. Yeah, and I don't know how they're going to... I'm very curious to see how they dance around that or make it work on Switch. I mean, you have 2 sticks, I guess, but that's not the same.
Has it been shown how Wonderful 101 plays on Switch?
I believe all they did was they took the gamepad things and just put them in the corner of the Switch screen, and then you just use the stick as a pointer.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
or there was like things like the crank. You now just rotate the stick instead of grabbing the crank with your finger and like rubbing it or whatever.
Yeah, and there was always a no gamepad mode, or I guess a no gamepad way to play it. Yeah. Like, pretty much that's how, like, I think most people started using the touchscreen, but eventually transitioned to just using the analog stick. Because if you're holding down the R button or ZR, you could quickly create the shapes, and it's almost more effective than using the stylus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll be interesting.
But yeah, I'm really curious how they're going to do Pikmin 3, and I wonder if they're going to include any new content, because like when a lot of games came to Switch and they got the Switch bump, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, Captain Toad, Hyrule Warriors, but like the ones that got the biggest bump, like New Super Mario Bros. U, actually added content. They weren't just copy pasted. And I wonder if they're going to give Pikmin 3 that luxury, or if they're just going to, I mean, anything's going to sell better on Switch than it's on Wii U. It's a bigger install base, so they could easily just pour it over as is with the DLC, with the Christmas map, and call it a day. But I wonder if they're going to go above and beyond. I hope they go above and beyond.
Hopefully.
I mean, in part because like my ultimate hope is that...
I mean, just include all the DLC. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, the Christmas levels, like the level design and the difficulty in the DLC was literally what I wanted the whole game to be like. It was like almost perfect. Except it was too little too late.
Right. Well, maybe they'll add like a new level or 2. I mean, I just want the game to succeed because I want to finally get a proper Pikmin 4. Because to go back to our earlier conversation real quick about how Nintendo announces things too early, does anyone remember when Miyamoto 5 years ago told Eurogamer that Pikmin 4 is, and I quote, close to completion?
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Right? And then 2 years after that, now 3 years ago, he told Polygon that Pikmin 4 is still progressing. I don't think he meant Hey Pikmin on 3DS in either of those cases. I hope he didn't mean Hey Pikmin on 3DS in either of those cases. For sure he did. Like, I don't know, because I don't think he called it Pikmin 4. It's for sure a spin-off. It's a platformer with a Pikmin skin, and it does a good job of, like, mapping the concepts of Pikmin onto a platformer. You have basically lemmings that help you do things, but it's more of a Mario, and it's more of the minis from the Mario vs. Donkey Kong game than it is a Pikmin game. And I can't imagine he would be saying Pikmin 4 is that. But even if he was saying that, why would he announce it so willy-nilly like that just to, Again, the 2-month window so nicely avoids these issues.
Darkest timeline.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of which, the community panel was fun, or the community reunion was fun. But yeah, it's
save it for QC.
I know, I'm kidding. But yeah, I don't know. I really hope Pikmin 4 happens. I hope it does well. And like, I don't really want to get ahead of ourselves here just yet, because like, let's just see if Pikmin 3 pans out, right? I guess first things first is, do we get a summer announcement of Pikmin 3? Because if so, that means as of now we're getting Pikmin, Mario 3D Collection, 3D World, the already announced Paper Mario, next month's Sword and Shield DLC, which is Isle of Armor, plus you know smatterings of other things like NES and Super Nintendo games, like we talked about at the top of the show. Like I joked a few weeks ago, I don't remember if it was to you guys or if I tweeted it, but I made some crack.
If you're just laughing to yourself.
Yeah, I might have been. I might be like, oh, what a tweet. But no, I don't remember. Basically, I was saying I'm going to have to treat every Nintendo tweet as if it's a mini direct if there's not a proper direct. And I'm realizing if I, like that list I just read off to you, that is a direct. That is the amount of content on the first party side we would get in a direct. It's just stretched out over a few months. So, like, maybe the current situation isn't so bad. Maybe we are getting what we're supposed to be getting. It's just a little looser. And like Nintendo's normal news cycle, it doesn't even factor in the bits and bobs that pop up, like the smaller stories, the game updates, that sort of thing. Case in point, what?
No, I just said awesome.
Oh, yeah, and like case in point, I know, Angel, there were two little things Nintendo announced recently that you were kind of wanting to chime in on, like the power-up packs for Lego Mario.
I mean, I like that they're doing additional costumes, but I feel like the review trailer is bordered on, man, like you don't even need the technical stuff in there. You're just supposed to just play with your imagination, which at that point just makes it feel like, why not just create the original set from the beginning, just a standard set, but maybe just incorporate some little sound bites in there somewhere. I'm sure they could have easily done it.
I mean,
or just make.
But go ahead, sorry.
But I don't know. But some of them feel okay, and others feel like Builder Mario. I don't know. He's just a bigger ground pound, and Propeller Mario is pretty fun. I mean, that one like the most of any. It's the fact you have to pretend you're flying around.
Yeah, that's what I find.
They're interesting, but I don't know.
If you distill down that minute and a half trailer of these new power-up suits, which will cost $2 a pop, just for anyone who's wondering, it's basically IRL DLC. But if you distill it down, you have Fire Mario that can shoot fireballs, which translates to you making a little flicking motion with him, and then him making a fireball sound. You have Cat Mario, which can climb up the side of things while making meowing noises, which again you do by picking it up and moving up the side of something. There's Propeller Mario, which you can fly and collect coins with, which again amounts to you just making motions through the air while it makes noises. And then there's Builder Mario, which, yeah, like you said, you just hit the thing harder and that's it. You make a downward motion. So everything's just you flailing in a different direction. He's
not actually breaking. Like, for a second, I'm like, oh, does he come with, like, these extra blocks that let you, I guess, add block to the level? You know, kind of how he does in the actual game? Because, I mean, it is Lego. You can't just add blocks. I mean, nothing's really stopping you from just jumping to the end. I mean, at least we haven't seen if there's anything actually stopping you. It kind of seems like the focus is to collect as many coins as possible.
God himself.
Which is always the part you don't want to focus on.
No, and New Super Mario Brothers 2 would like to have a word with you, but yeah, it.
I didn't say that you can't. I just said you should.
I know. But yeah, no.
I like that game, but
me too. But there's a companion app for Lego Mario that literally tracks your coin counting. So yes, that's literally. Did I say? I said Lego Mario, but yeah, that's literally its purpose. But the thing that's like throwing me in a loop is you're paying $2 to pretend Mario's a paper airplane. Like, I mean, yes, it's counting coins, but I don't know. Like maybe they. I feel like they took the simplest way out. You know, like maybe for Cat Mario, it could come with some sort of like those slappy hands from the '90s that you like slap against something and it has like that stickiness. Why don't they put it on his feet and then you can put him sideways on surfaces that you build and he actually can stand there? Or like Propeller Mario, like. Put little, give a couple extra pieces that you can build a track and he can fly down the track. Like he hooks in, like his propeller doubles as like kind of a, like a thing on a track and it can slide down. Like it's kind of
anything
perpendicular. Yeah. Like I guess they're kids in their imaginations and they can fill in the gaps, but like,
but they could have done that anyway.
To basically have the Mario go, oh, I'm moving, let me make you more coins.
Because you know what? The worst part is like now because of this, it feels like they could have just as easily done like, ignoring like a Bowser's Castle with standard Legos. Like they could have given you enough Legos to create essentially World 1-1 or like more elaborate worlds, because the ones they currently have, by making them, I guess, bigger pieces and I guess more kid friendly, they ended up limiting, I guess, how big they can get or how, I guess, diverse, for lack of a better term. And I feel like they could have had like a really cool, like, I don't know, overworld level maker, and it's pretty much like Mario Maker at that point, just analog, and the kids could just as easily have their imagination or do the same thing with that. But it doesn't have the Nintendo innovation, which I sometimes want to like. I like giving them a hand for, or I mean, I'll applaud their wanting to be innovative, but sometimes I feel like they just want to be innovative for innovative sake, and it just ends up.
You mean like the entirety of the Wii U's existence?
Wii U, yeah, Star Fox Zero, or a lot of games, like they refuse to come up with an F-Zero unless they could come up with an idea. It's like, oh well, what about, I don't know, just a regular F-Zero? I feel like they don't have to.
The thing that's so funny about that to me is we're talking about like earlier, like the Kirby games and Paper Mario, and they don't follow that logic. They'll be like, oh, we'll do some weird ones, but also like you want standard RPG, Mario and Luigi.
Yeah, they literally do both. Like Kirby, they give us a regular steam of standard Kirby gameplay with some flourishes thrown in there, but not enough to shake up the formula, while still giving us completely weird like Kirby's Mass Attack, Epic Yarn.
Exactly. That
are still really cool. Like it doesn't feel like one is replacing the other, but for other franchises, they feel like, no, it's all or nothing. It's like, what the heck?
Well, from my understanding, Miyamoto was never a big fan of F-Zero GX, even though it was the best one. Yeah, for whatever reason. Maybe it just wasn't what he saw the series becoming, even though it's what the fans want. Again, Paper Mario. There's your analogy. But, I don't know. It's...
I mean, so many people play these games. Like, sometimes it makes me wonder, like for example, just like for... like a quick example, like I guess like in Smash Brothers, for lack of a better term, like maybe they thought they were being innovative with the online options, or because I mean they go against everything that like the industry typically does for fighting games. That almost makes you question like why they did it that way. And I feel like of all the people that play tested it, that went through the game hundreds of times, not one time did anyone go like, yeah, this kind of sucks. Can we just do what everyone else does? Or were they all like, oh, we just don't have a say in it? Like, it's just gonna, like, I mean, I find it hard to believe that a sane person would not say this is terrible and just let it go unless like they really are just being contrary to be contrary or something.
So
or like the freaking Nintendo, the phone app, like no one thought that was not gonna work.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that now, because there is, I think it boils down to Nintendo's philosophy as a company. And I don't mean like, oh, we have to be different. I mean like there were some documents that leaked. Apparently a month and a half ago, the entire Wii, like everything leaked, like the source code for the OS, the documents outlining the pitches for all the features. And one of those documents was a slide deck explaining why friend codes make sense and are the way to go. And we look at it as gamers, right? We look at it as, we know, you know where I'm going with this? We look at it as...
no, you keep saying we, that's what...
Oh. I'm doing this a lot today. Usually I'm on my pun game. I don't know what's up. But collectively, us as gamers know what is best for a game because we have done the gaming. But Nintendo doesn't look at it as what the gamers want. They look at it as what makes sense for them. So in the Wii era, what made sense to them was making a super accessible device that was easy to pick up and play, and it removed all the hurdles of gaming. So the controller wasn't one angle of that, making it like it's something familiar like a TV remote. The games were another angle of that, make it where you don't really have to learn anything. It's all intuitive. Look at, Wii Sports, look at Wii Sports. But like even like Mario and stuff, like, oh, you just shake it to make him jump, like things like that. Like it kind of makes sense. Or you just point where you want to shoot in Metroid. Like it's all like very intuitive. And then they looked at in this document, well, what are the hurdles of online play? And they were saying things like, I don't remember the details, but it's basically along the lines of like people will be uncomfortable if they don't get the name they want. People will be uncomfortable if people see them across multiple games and they don't want to be seen. What if they think they're being stalked? What if people try and talk to them? Like all these things that like, grandma playing Wii bowling, how is she going to get online? What's comfortable for her? So the friend code thing was their solution. Because they're like, well, it's like a phone number. Everyone's comfortable with phone numbers. It has a level of anonymity and it's fine. And that's basically the pitch that came from NCL through NOA in this slide deck. And to your Smash point, Smash to Sakurai has always been a party game first. even though he accommodates the fighting game world.
No, yeah, and with that in mind, it does make sense for the dumb thing that everyone can pick their own rule set, and you're sometimes forced to play with their rule set whether you like it or not.
Yeah, because
the
randomness is what makes it.
But then it falls apart when, like, in the last game, he had his for glory and for fun. So in theory, that was him saying, like, hey, you know what? For fun is pretty much how I want to play. For glory is how you guys supposedly want to play. But then he still, but yeah.
Think about that. He's like, so you want to play this way? Great. I'm going to give you an option to play that way. But you know what? This is a fighting game that people who want to play a party game can get into. So instead of pushing down people that aren't doing well, why don't we lift up the times they do, and thus the backwards leaderboard happened. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense as someone who, you know, knows how leaderboards work and everything, but, you know, the whole, like, you'll know how do you do it? You're this much better, not this much.
You're this many people better. You're better than this many people.
Yeah. So I mean, that fits the logic of I'm making an accessible party game that has a fighting element. How do we get people that play the party half to play the fighting half if we're gonna do it? Well, like, what's that bridge? That bridge is you don't put them down for being bad, you lift them up for being good. So if you say no matter how bad they are, you're still better than all these other people, that sounds great. Versus, wow, there are 7 million people in front of you. You suck, which is.
I mean. It's like that logic works until you realize that anyone that would care in the slightest to even figure out what the GSP or whatever it is, let's say they're like a new player that thinks like, oh man, like little Timmy got online and
hey, little Timmy, we haven't heard from him.
And then he does a few matches and then he's like, oh man, and then like he gets online and then all of a sudden he's like whoa, I'm like 200,000. That's amazing. I'm betting 200,000 people. I wonder, I must be really good. Then he goes online and sees like what it takes to get into Smash Elite, where you're quote unquote good, and then he sees that's like 7 million, because that's kind of where it is right now. Yeah. I mean, that almost makes it feel the worst at that point. I mean, I feel like everyone knows they're starting at the bottom, and if anything, it's nicer seeing a bigger number at the bottom when you're starting and then climbing up. Oh no, I know. I know. I'm just saying, like, I don't know why they don't
see that.
That's just how, like, I mean, that's how it's been since like people first started competing since competing started getting like documented. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand why that ranking system makes sense for the more random items on those sorts of battles, but I don't understand why for Glory. I mean, I do on some level, but I don't understand how they didn't think the next step. But I think that is partly why the Switch, for example... Actually, no, I take it back. I don't know why the Switch has the Nintendo Switch app. I don't, because the friend code thing almost made sense.
All right.
No. The friend code thing almost made sense because...
Like, hold me back.
No, Nintendo, you're wrong here. No,
I'm done defending you.
It's like when I realized that Cars 2 was a bad movie, like in the middle of saying that it was a good one.
Yeah, no, but like... I get the friend code thing in 2006 because online gaming was
Jason
not
Unplugged
super prevalent in a mainstream way. But I don't understand in 2016 when gaming online is prevalent, Words with Friends, and all of that. Candy Crush. People are playing online through these mobile games for years. I don't understand why Nintendo now still feels the need to put a barrier up. I did get it back then because, like, at that point, it was Xbox Live. It was the early days of Sony's infrastructure. It was Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. It was very new, especially for their demographic, but it's not new anymore. Like, what are you doing, Nintendo?
Well, honestly, it's because Nintendo is an old-fashioned company that still hasn't gone with the times. Like, let's look at Evo, for instance. Evo is just dropping Super Smash because their netcode isn't up to snuff, and their netcode isn't up to snuff. Like, I guess Angel could talk about this a little bit more. Like, how has that been for you?
Played up. Honestly, playing online isn't that bad, and just the only problem is that you do have to get used to it. Like, honestly, I play online a ton. I mean, not so much anymore, but when I did, like, I've had plenty of matches where I couldn't tell you where there was lag. Like, it felt no different than playing offline. But I've played against people that only play offline, and then when they play online, even though I feel there is literally no lag whatsoever, they won't stop complaining about the lag. And
they pick up on the milliseconds.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, just get used to it. But I mean, after maybe like a couple more matches, they finally get used to it. I mean, it's just an adjustment. Essentially, you just press a button slightly later than usual, sure, it's like, but the change is so small, the average player won't notice whatsoever. But I mean, the fact that that discrepancy does exist would be horrible for an online scene, especially because a lot of these people almost never play online for that reason, versus people that, I mean, if they did play this game online, yeah, you'll have those people that never play online versus people that literally only play online and they're considered like the best in the world online, but they don't really get recognized as the best Smash player in the world unless it's offline, even though in theory they could be just as good just because there's that discrepancy. And I don't know, I just find it interesting. Like, it could be like Evo saying like, "Oh yeah, we're not doing this no matter what," or, I mean, Nintendo is the game with the most entries. It always has like one of the biggest crowds of any of the games at Evo. So maybe for all we know, like, Evo could have been like, "Come on, Nintendo, just do it anyway." I mean, Smash is Smash. There's plenty of online tournaments. They could figure it out. But maybe, I guess Nintendo also could have pulled it on their end, thinking like, "Yeah, we know this is going to be a PR nightmare, potentially." But
yeah, but I also feel like every other game that's on that list has decent enough netcode, like, across the world, that's why. Like, that's probably why the organizers decided not to, because you're also bringing in the fact that there's going to be players in Japan, there's going to be players in the US, there's going to be players in Europe. Like,
yeah, well, the thing is, like, now only
like,
four of those.
International.
Well,
like,
I mean, only 4 games in that whole tournament are going to be open tournaments, as opposed to the usual however many. They have like 12 games at Evo that are usually.
Which are the 4 this time around?
The
Mortal Kombat,
Mortal
right?
Kombat
I know
11.
that was one of them.
It's Mortal Kombat 11, Skullgirls, the horse fighting game, the quadruped fighting game.
yeah, them
Oh,
fighting herds.
yeah, them fighting herds.
Fighting herds.
Yeah, them
And
fighting herds.
the Cross Blue something, that new fighting game.
Really? Oh wait, what?
I thought it was like
Killer Instinct.
Oh,
You're
it's
right.
Killer
Yeah,
Instinct.
you're right.
Yeah,
Killer
you're
Instinct.
right.
Oh yeah. Because I was just
Yeah,
because I remember Killer Instinct wasn't anywhere, and now it's like filling the Smash void, even though it has nothing.
Yeah,
it's
so with
not
the
like
exception
Smash
of
at all.
Mortal Kombat and them fighting herds, yeah, the other ones aren't even new games. They're just like literally putting in the games that they know have a really good netcode. Like, not even Street Fighter
Yeah.
4, 5, which is, I mean, debatably, actually not even debatably, it's like the crown game of the event. It's like the, whatever Street Fighter game is out at the time is always the pinnacle fighting game of, I guess, caliber, as they put it. Like, even though Smash gets more entries, it's always like Street Fighter. That's how you wrap it up, and that's not even being like a featured game in this capacity. I mean, they're obviously planning something else. They're probably going to have, maybe they will have some local stream things, but there's going to be such a small number of people in such a controlled environment that it will allow them to do a local. But maybe they're going to fly out certain people, like an invitational of sorts. But I don't know. That still doesn't even seem likely.
I do think that, Andrew, you raised a good point. I don't know if this is entirely Evo's decision to not Nintendo, because I'm sure they want the eyeballs and the revenue that comes with that. I bet you it's also in large part Nintendo, because they got to sit back a few weeks ago as not really directly involved with watching Facebook Gaming's Mario Tennis Open Celebrity Tournament, which in of itself was cool because they got all these huge tennis players and all these huge celebrities, and they got them to play together. And it doesn't matter if they're not good or whatever. It was for charity. So conceptually it was cool, but the problem was the game lagged, crashed, all sorts of stuff, and it wasn't a good look for Mario Tennis. I'm sure on some level, Nintendo wants to be able to control that environment a bit better, which is probably why, like, even in the midst of Evo dropping Smash, Nintendo's like, oh, well, we have the online open through Battlefly, and we're still doing that, and we're going to, if you want to do that, you can win a Fighter Pass, a Volume 2 Fighter Pass DLC code, Splatoon 2, and ARMS download codes. Like, we're giving you stuff. Like, you can come play with us. But they get to control that a lot better, and it's a much smaller audience.
Yeah, also people go in knowing that it's an online thing, so.
But that's also a North American Open only, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what I mean. They get controlled a little better in terms of, like, it's smaller in every sense. Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if you... The last time they tried to host an online tournament that they actually streamed, I don't remember what the circumstances was, but there's like a clip that's like, yeah,
Nintendo?
there's a clip that's passed around as like around the Smash community as being infamous for, like, there's lag going on, like, in the stream, like, it's clearly lag. So then they cut to the announcers that they have, like, in the building somewhere, that they're just like kind of like, yeah, they're just chatting about the fight, and they're like reassuring, they're like, oh, like, yeah, it looks bad, but don't worry, on their end they're not seeing anything whatsoever. Like, but it's like
I think I remember that.
But it's like oh no, they are.
It was the online open.
Yeah, it's like
it was last year's online open.
Yeah, it's like no, yeah, they're trying to kind of bury it under the rug.
So they're just trying to
bury it under. Hide it under the rug.
Bury under. You're some sort of mobster apparently. But yeah, it's I think it's a lot. I think it's both Evo doesn't want it and Nintendo doesn't want to have the blowback because like. I feel like the conversation, like the Mario Tennis one,
it's not like they announced anything at Evo
but
anyway.
The conversation I saw on Twitter was everyone like, "Wow, this doesn't."
Unless they were gonna do something crazy this year and actually put the ARMS character trailer during Evo, because some games do announce it's like a little fighting game E3, but Nintendo I guess has never really done that, so maybe it's not even a big deal.
They teased they would soon announce a trailer. Soon debut a trailer last time.
Well, actually, yeah, they did say ARMS character was going to be in June anyway, and Evo is like early August.
And Evo would be, now it's July. They're going to do it all weekend.
And it's 5 weeks. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's
seems
cool
it's
because
bigger
if you
now.
care about competitive. Yeah, and if you care about competitive fighting, it's kind of cool. Cause,
it's like a season.
It's be for those who care about this. Yeah, and but even more so because like in June, for those who do care about the online open and do all watch that, it is normal tournament style, no items, 3 stock, all that, and that's going to run last weekend of May and every weekend in June, and then the first weekend in July just switch over to all the other games on Evo for another month. So you have 2 solid months of like actual stuff to either do or watch or both, which is kind of cool. Something you can't really do when there are these hyper local events where you have to be there in person. It's only for like 3 days. So there is a silver lining to it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But Angel, I do believe while we're all like have bone to picks right now, I think there was something you wanted to bring up about Mario Kart Tour, right?
Well, I don't I don't dislike that game. Like it just exists. It was just kind of I
dislike that game.
It's actually no, yeah. This episode is full of like taking
Cars 2 again.
Yeah, it's like
this episode is the quarantine getting to all of us, and we're starting to go stir crazy and get mad about dumb little things.
Yeah, I was pretty much trying to lie to myself, telling myself like, oh, you know what, this game did a good job with what it attempted because it wasn't trying to be big. But then it's like, no, it could have.
Controls.
It's like I thought the controls were fine, but they were fine for what they were. I don't think they're like that hard to figure out, but they do limit what you can do in the game, like as a design space overall, and they could have done way more. Just look at all the Sonic racing games that are like on iPads and iPhones that actually work well. But point is, it's that it shouldn't exist the way it does. But point is, like that game of all of them, like it's getting like more characters. It already has a bunch of crazy characters and like DLC that just like gives me horrible FOMO for Mario Kart Deluxe because that game's just been sitting there, like it's existing when you have like Funky Kong and Dixie Kong actually getting added there. Dixie Kong, I think it's like her first time even appearing since when was the last time Dixie was in a Mario Kart game, if she was ever even in one.
I know Funky was Wii. Was Dixie also Mario Kart?
I don't even think Dixie was ever in a Mario Kart game.
And now look at her. And that Kart, the Rambi
I know,
rider,
and like
looks cool.
A character made a debut, like a new character, not like an alternate skin color, like in Mario Kart Tour, when like they could have just as easily like made DLC for Mario Kart for Mario Kart Deluxe 8. It's not like they don't have the money to do it. They clearly have a ton of money. They're like drowning in it right now. But it's like, I don't know. That kind of applies to a lot of games. They clearly have the money to do more Mario Party DLC. They have the money to develop all these games a little longer, but a lot of them are just feeling, disappointing and coming short. It just feels like they can get away with it because they're Nintendo.
I think to parse that out a bit, I think on some level, I almost kind of do get the logic of why the Kongs are in Mario Kart Tour specifically. Now, it doesn't excuse why they're not in Mario Kart 8 as well, but I see why they're pushing them so hard in Tour, because, like, one of Nintendo's big pushes for their mobile apps is, they want to rope in folks to the IPs and then convince them to jump over to proper Nintendo devices. And they do this in part by, having someone make a Nintendo account, and that kind of becomes their centralized Nintendo identity, and they use it to log in everywhere. And while we didn't really talk about like how Nintendo's mobile division did when we talked about financials last episode, it is there and it is growing. Like Nintendo brought in something like 51 billion yen off mobile last year, which is up 11% from the year prior. And then there's this, they had the financial briefing, and then they do a Q&A afterwards. And the transcript for that came out since our last episode. And in that episode, in that transcript, Santoro Furukawa, Nintendo's president, was emphasizing how it's these mobile games that are helping drive over 100 million Nintendo accounts being created. And while there are, some new apps in the works right now, he's saying that Mario Kart Tour in particular, Animal Crossing in particular, are main focuses to continue doing that. So if you take into consideration and look at like Nintendo promoting how they're going about promoting the current Jungle Tour, which is where these guys and Rambi are debuting, they put out a trailer. They show Rambi in his original Donkey Kong Country sprite form, and then they up-res him into Mario Kart. You can kind of see what they're going for here. Like Nintendo's making a nostalgia play and hoping that lapsed fans, especially right now when they're sitting at home nothing to do, will jump into Tour because it's free, and from there they can move on to Nintendo's bigger projects. But I do agree that just because they're doing that in Tour does not excuse them not. There's zero reason Dixie and Funky have to only be in Tour. Like the same nostalgia play can be done in Mario
Farm
Kart 8
actual money,
as well.
which I will spend. They could give us more tracks. They could join Captain Falcon. I mean, they've already teased everyone with 2 Captain Falcon stages or 0 stages. Even having him come out on a poster
there's so much in
the movie or in a billboard or giant television.
Right. And there's so much money to be made in that too, because there's another interesting comment in that same Q&A from Furukawa where he was saying that in light of work at home, and I quote, "Our thinking is that more than ever, we can't rely only on new titles, but need to ensure that we are communicating the appeal of our already released evergreen titles to consumers and creating opportunities for consumers to experience them." So, not to read between the lines here too much, but to me that sounds like some of their evergreens are literally, as you're saying, Angel, perfect for DLC. They're ripe for DLC. If Nintendo's hands are tied in terms of what they can do from home, surely adding assets to an existing game is easier remotely than building entirely new games on new engines, perhaps from scratch, right? So if they do that, it gives the game a profile boost in the media that simply running an ad campaign doesn't do in the same way. It'd be organically covered. It'd be much bigger. And then there's all of us, 25 million Mario Kart 8 Deluxe owners in the world, who will go buy the thing. So I don't quite understand why they're not doing it. If you think about all the Switch owners who can now double dip, month after month after month, Mario Kart 8 continues to chart in NPD's top 20. On April's charts, the game was the second best seller on Switch, only behind, of course, Animal Crossing New Horizon. But and by the way, this was in a month where Switch sales were through the roof. It was the top selling system for the 17th consecutive month. For once in a long time, we actually have concrete numbers. In April, the Switch sold 808,000 units. That is the most a video game system has ever sold in any April. It surpasses the previous record holder, the Wii, back in April 2008 or 9. In fact, if you look at the year-to-date period of January through April of any year in U.S. video game history, the Switch has now become the highest-selling video game console in that 4-month period in dollar sales ever, which is especially impressive when you realize the previous record holder, the Wii, cost $50 more than the Switch Lite costs now, and it's the Switch Lite that's more readily available, not the regular Switch that's more expensive. So they have a cheaper thing that people are buying in higher quantities to the point that's making more money than the Wii did a decade ago, or than any console has ever made. It's crazy. And the point I'm getting at here is that even with all those Switches sold, Mario Kart 8 is still the go-to for so many people. I mean, it's in the last 12 months, it's been one of the industry's top 10 best-selling games. In 2020 alone, it's been one of the industry's top 10 best-selling games. So, there's a huge, continually growing audience for the DLC. It's not just the 25 million that already are there. It's this literally every month, month after month after month, there's all these opportunities for Nintendo to, seize that crowd and put out Dixie and Funky and Captain Falcon and what have you in the game. It's very weird that they're not.
And they're probably saving it either for Mario Kart 9 or the eventual Nintendo Kart.
Yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to do Nintendo Kart. I feel like they would have already crossed that bridge when they could have easily rebranded.
I really hope they do. I mean, Mario Kart 8 kind
of
feels like they're setting us up to do a Nintendo Kart next, because it does kind of feel like they already drained the well of Mario property racing. I mean, that's 8 races already. 8 games.
Yeah.
There's only so many times
true.
I could go
That's
through the
true.
same Nintendo Fight Desert, as pretty as it looks.
I don't think they're ever going to rebrand it, though. The closest they can maybe do is Super Smash Kart, but Mario Kart is much more
then just take a page from Sega.
It'll be Mario Kart 9.
Just put Mario and All-Stars Racing.
Mario and All-Stars
Mario Kart Universe, I don't know. Mario Kart Galaxies.
Like that. Yeah, and then they can move away from the numbering scheme finally. But yeah, it's it seems like a no-brainer. But you raise a good. Oops, I just hit my laptop. You raise a good point, guy. They could just be saving it Because, I mean, the opposite side of the coin of what I just said is, okay, it's selling so well, why even do anything else? It keeps selling as is. But it's just like there's
money to be made from the people
getting $10 from exactly. So, but since we're already talking about MPD a bit anyway, if you're curious, game industry's crazy right now. Like spending in April is up 73%. It's the highest ever for an April in gaming history. Like the top games, Kevin, you like this? Final Fantasy VII Remake, #1 game of the month. Yeah. Call of Duty Modern Warfare somehow snuck back up to #2, and then Animal Crossing was at #3. What's kind of interesting, though, is that Just Dance, of all games, Just Dance 2020 is creeping up the charts. Highest position the game series has been since 2014. #1 on the overall, but #3 on the Switch-specific chart. And I can't help but imagine that must be because Nintendo doesn't have more Ring Fit out there. Like, people want to be active at home, and there's this game that has a lot of momentum right now in Buzz, Ring Fit Adventure, but you can't find it.
I was seriously thinking about picking up fitness boxing. Like that.
Was that because you couldn't get Ring Fit, or is that in addition to Ring Fit?
Just because I couldn't get Ring Fit.
And it's yeah, and I wonder, like, fitness boxing sold over.
I need to bring up really quickly, but like before I forget, yeah, I thought I was getting close to the end of Ring Fit Adventure because I'm like at level 100. Like my character has already reached level 100, and everything felt like it was wrapping up. But then, just out of curiosity, I'm like, I'm just gonna like Google how many levels you can get. Like, you know.
How many more are there?
Apparently I could get up to 301, so I'm like only a third of this game that's apparently like a monster. So yeah, definitely gonna last me a long time. I think this is why I haven't heard any post-play impressions. It's like everyone that, like, I remember like Game Explain was like, oh yeah, we'll come back to you once we beat the whole game, and it's like never happened.
And it's going to probably keep growing because another thing that Furukawa said in the Q&A is that they think the potential demand has not been filled for Ring Fit. Like, basically, they know there's shortages.
Oh, he thinks?
So they plan to... Yeah, he just thinks it. But he's saying we plan to put emphasis on its sales as a core title during this fiscal year as well. So I would expect, at bare minimum, a huge marketing push for Ring Fit once they get production back up. Potentially more DLC like the rhythm game mode. Which, like... You know, again, goes to show how very much right now, to go full circle with all this, very much Nintendo's living in the now and promoting in the now with their marketing versus looking months and months ahead. So it kind of all meshes. Like, modern Nintendo is very much 8-week chunk Nintendo in a way. But yeah, it's Ring Fit. Yeah, that's a huge. I bet they are so mad at themselves that, like, this is the perfect time for it. I am curious if, like, Clubhouse Games is going to, in a different way, kind of do, like, Ring Fit is for fitness, Clubhouse maybe
old
for
people.
Board game nights with people you can't see in person. Like, I'm curious how big that's gonna get. What did you say? Old people? I mean, you're not wrong, but there's actually another game that saw a boost on the MPD chart as well that I want to point out, which is Mario Kart. Wow, Mortal Kombat 11, which crept back up to number 13 on the overall chart. And I guess with all this talk of DLC, if Nintendo wants any sort of litmus test of how DLC can boost a game in the midst of, you know, a pandemic. This may be the one to watch because I think this week, like Monday or Tuesday, so right after this goes up, they're releasing the Aftermath DLC for Mortal Kombat 11, which brings back friendships for free, right? Brings them back.
Yeah, friendships and stage fatalities.
And then they're adding paid content that people want on top of that in the form of a single-player story, a new campaign within it, and 3 additional fighters, including RoboCop. So
it's crazy. Have you seen fatalities?
I have not. Is it cool?
Yeah, they're really funny, and one of them is I was gonna say slight nod, but no, it's a total full nod to one of the most
iconic
recognizable scenes in iconic moments in RoboCop history.
It's definitely one of the things that people would be like, oh, did they put that in there? They have to put that in there. It's like, oh yeah, it's in there. Don't worry.
And I like the spin that they put on it too, though.
I'm gonna have to look this up. I don't want to say my guess in case I do spoil it.
Yeah,
if I'm right.
Yeah, just watch the trailer later.
After. I have a feeling I know what you're saying. I have a feeling.
But I mean, it is nice to see like NetherRealm's at least supporting this game a lot longer, because typically by now they would have already announced their next game and it would have already
Injustice 3 and
it would have just gone through the next rotation. Right. But yeah, like letting their fighting game community actually grow for a bit, like seems like a really smart move for them, especially with, you know, I guess like how long the development times for this one and Injustice 2 were. Or actually not even long, because they had to force them into their typical schedule. So how grueling it was. I mean, didn't like someone, I don't want to say died as a result, but someone did die during production of Injustice 2. Yeah, really? Someone passed away. They have a memoriam for him. Wow. I don't know if could have been related to overwork, could have not been. I don't know, but definitely didn't look good for them. I mean, they already have other stories on them, so.
Oh yeah, like the PTSD from people who had to research how to do fatalities correctly.
But I mean, the love and care they definitely put into this, like, definitely shows. Like, I really wish. It sounds horrible to say because like we don't deserve what Smash Brothers has grown into right now, character-wise. It just really sucks that everything around that is still not that great. Like,
what do you mean?
Just like getting to certain things, like pretty much the gameplay options online, or at least like for multiplayer. Like so many things that come so close to being perfect. Like I love that. Like one of the things I really hope they added was added in mostly, which was the team battle mode. Essentially, you pick like 3 or 5 different characters, and each one represents a different life. So you could start as Bowser and end the fight as Mr. Game & Watch. But for whatever reason, you can only do 3 or 5. You can't just like pick your own number. Like there's just like a lot of pluses and a lot of weird sides that are like just almost ruin a perfect experience. And at this point, it's like, why not also throw in costumes that I keep adding? I mean, Mortal Kombat doesn't seem to have a problem doing that, even though the amount of rigging and modeling they have to do probably per character is like the equivalent of like 2 or 3 in Smash Brothers, just like detail wise. Like it's crazy. But then again, I don't know what else they're working on, so yeah.
And the thing, even to Mortal Kombat's credit, like friendships, that's a lot of new animations they had to make, and they're all wacky and wonderful. And like I love how it subverts the entire concept of Mortal Kombat so well. But
it's like, give us new taunts. Like what the heck are some of these taunts? What is Bowser's down taunt? Like what did they use as inspiration for that? I don't even know like what he's supposed to be doing. It's the one where it looks like he's like tripping on himself for some reason. Cause I guess.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because you know Bowser, he's known for always tripping or.
That clumsy klutz Bowser. Yeah, it's I don't know, but yeah, it's an interesting point that the way that different companies feel is the right approach to supporting their games post release. Like it's I think it's gonna be a little while before companies like lock in the right way, and they're all gonna be doing it slightly differently. And of course, they're all gonna follow one path, except Nintendo, who always does their own things. So.
Yep.
But I get where you're coming from. Yeah, it is nice though that all this stuff from Mortal Kombat will be on Switch.
That is cool. Yeah.
Like, yeah. I feel like a lot of third parties kind of don't give Switch equal treatment, but it's really cool that Warner Brothers and NetherRealm actually did.
The Switch is doing so well that they'd have to be crazy not to.
You would think, right? So explain to me, why is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 not?
Oh, well, that's easy because they're crazy. Like, I literally just said you would have to be crazy. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Duh.
Yeah. No. All right. Next topic. No. But seriously, like I don't understand that one at all because like. I mean, first of all, the game sounds great. Tony Hawk. So Activision's basically doing a full-on remake.
Maybe they tried and it just doesn't work.
Tony Hawk games.
Keeps crashing.
No, it totally works. I mean, dude, the Switch can run Unreal Engine 5. It can run Tony Hawk. And not only that, but like the people that are making Tony Hawk, it's Vicarious Visions. They're the developer. They're a studio that really like cut their teeth on Nintendo platforms. I mean, you may know the name more recently for their Crash remakes. But before that, they were the sole developer of every Guitar Hero for Wii and DS. And before that, they were known as the wizards who were somehow able to port Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and 3 to the Game Boy Advance. And they actually made it really fun. And somehow, some way, they were able to take these N64 and GameCube 3D worlds, downsize them into a system that can't actually do real 3D, and then do some visual trickery to like make it seem 3D with isometric camera angles and all sorts of other stuff. And it played like really well. Like I had Tony Hawk 2 I got about a month after I got my Game Boy Advance, and I distinctly remember how amazed I was by how like good it was. I mean, sure, like Mario Advance was fun and Rayman Advance was cool, and I got those with launch, but a month later, like playing Tony Hawk in a way that not only looked 3D but felt so much like the console counterparts, even though it was on a Game Boy, like that kind of blew my mind. Even if it was, it took some hits, fewer skaters, fewer parks, but still, like having it like proper Tony Hawk experience on the Game Boy Advance was crazy. So if Vicarious Visions can do that, I really don't understand why they couldn't do a Switch port.
All I can think is visual fidelity. They don't want to lose. Possibly. They don't want to lose that.
But even then, like again, looking back at Tony Hawk 1 and 2, unless their whole argument, or 2 and 3, but if their whole argument's like no, like if it's all.
So
about
you're saying they should create a new game specifically,
like
a
stuff.
Switch version?
No, they can down-res it. Well, because here's the thing.
What
if
like
Tony Hawk? Well, no. Here's the thing. So if they're saying it's just a visual remake, sure, but they're actually doing a lot of cool stuff with the game itself. I mean, yes, it's the first and second game, new visuals. It has all the same skaters. I think the majority of the music's back. But now it has online play. Has online multiplayer. You have an online skate park builder where they have this new meta within the game where different tasks you do in Tony Hawk 1 or 2, different accomplishments, different tricks you unlock, whatever, will unlock parts to build your skate park, and the skate park will be kind of like a third mode in addition to 1 and 2. So there's like this whole other element to the game beyond the visual fidelity, which is why I'm kind of like, I mean, every other game seems to be willing to take the hit. And I think what's actually kind of annoying is, as a Nintendo-only gamer, like, Tony Hawk has always been big on Nintendo platforms. Like, it was there on N64, it was there on GameCube, it's right there along the PlayStation.
It's funny because I always thought of it as a PlayStation game or as PlayStation property.
But, like, no, I know, but here's what's weird. Like, American Skateland, remember that one?
No.
American Skateland? That was
American Skateland was really dope.
And it was the first third-party online game for the DS. It was a Nintendo Wi-Fi connection launch title. It was the first major, outside of, like, Phantasy Star and GameCube, the first major third-party online game. And then, like, when the Wii came out, they made an exclusive Tony Hawk game just for the Wii and DS, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, which, granted, was a bit more of a racing game. It was like a stunt
and it wasn't very good.
Yeah, but the point is, they still, like, were, like, Tony Hawk was that closely associated with the Nintendo brand that they made an exclusive Tony Hawk game for a Nintendo launch. So, like, it's not like it was so, like, oh, it's just afterthought on Nintendo from the beginning. They were there with Nintendo all along the way. So I'm
they weren't there all the way. American Skateland, if I'm not mistaken, was the last time that they were on a Nintendo console.
No, they had Downhill Jam.
Okay, so Downhill Jam, a not very good game.
What about Tony Hawk Ride?
And after Downhill Jam, it was Proving Ground and Project 8 followed that weren't on a Nintendo console.
That's right.
Then Pro Skater HD didn't show up on a Nintendo platform, so you can just argue that, well, it just doesn't seem like they're ever going to go back with Nintendo.
Yeah, well, that's a bummer. And I mean, it's not like we don't have other things we can do. Like, there is Skatebird coming out, which is kind of a similar game. There is Skate XL coming out, or Skater XL coming out, which is a bit more of a skate style one, but still. So there are, like, options for Nintendo fans, but if you want, like, the OG, you can't really get it, and it's just weird.
Get a PS4 or an Xbox 360.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, it's just weird because,
super cheap.
We were talking. You're saying how crazy it is that, not to release it on the system. Like I was saying before, 17 consecutive months as the top-selling console. It's been out for 3 years.
I mean,
9 third-party games in the last year have sold 1 million copies. Like, what excuses?
I know, especially considering, I mean, Mortal Kombat 11 is on the Switch. I mean, that game, like, definitely looked like a game that I would say, like, whoa, like, they're not going to put this on the Switch, or they would have to, like, compromise the visuals, and they compromised the visuals. I mean, it definitely doesn't look as great, but I mean, when you're playing, you don't really notice it that much anyway.
Yeah, and like, they're
I mean, the only reason I guess would be if the director was like, I really don't want to compromise, kind of like Kevin said, the fidelity of this game.
Vision.
Yeah,
which is possible.
And if that's the case, then that's the case. I mean, sometimes that's the easiest explanation.
I feel like this game is also a testing ground to see if we're going to get more Tony Hawk in the future, because
Kevin, I'm sorry, are you saying that this new Tony Hawk is a proving ground?
Sure, because Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD wasn't very well received. It was got very mediocre reviews, and then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 came out, and that was a trash fire that a lot of people would like to try and forget, but unfortunately they can't, because Lil Wayne was in that video game. But
they made it all the way to 5. Dang.
Forgot about that.
Well,
it way beyond 5.
No, well,
they just stopped numbering them at 5.
No, they stopped numbering them at 4, and then they went to the.
Wait, what was 5? Oh, I see what you're saying. They circled back to 5 and pretended all the other ones weren't part of the. Yeah.
Well, Pro Skater 5 was a more traditional, because like after Pro Skater 4 was Underground, and Underground was where the series went.
Underground was on Nintendo platform.
Yeah, Underground 2 was also on there.
Yeah.
I don't know if American Wasteland was. Oh, it was. Never mind. But
yeah, they kept them going longer than I thought. It was only the last 3 when the fidelity jump happened.
Yeah, and so you have 2 games that range from mediocre to just abysmal, And so this new game, like maybe they're like, maybe let's not do it for the Switch yet. Let's see if this sells on regular on the other consoles, not regular.
That's true too.
That just
Possibly.
works.
I guess it's just not. I guess I'm. If that's the case, I feel like it's so far in with the Switch's success that like, hey, maybe it'll sell better on Switch, you guys. I mean, Crash is one of the games that sold over 1 million on Switch as a year.
Sure,
later.
but how much?
So you
did
could
it sell
argue,
on
well,
other
people will
consoles?
double dip, but I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This, I think Pro Skater 1+2, such a weird naming convention.
It is.
I think it's a testing ground for just see if people do want Tony Hawk, and if enough people buy for this, I will bet that we'll get it on Switch.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. It does lead to an interesting question though, because like obviously I seem a little perturbed about a series that had its roots in Nintendo and then left. Are there any franchises like that have always kind of been like, why is this not on a Nintendo platform anymore? I mean, Banjo comes to mind immediately, even though they didn't do much with it since, and he sort of came back. But do you guys have any games that you wish were like still on or available to play like on the go with your Switch or whatever?
All I can think about is like the mainline Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, that's true. After they jumped
6,
to PlayStation, they never quite came back.
Yeah, and we've had ports of the ones that were on PlayStation. Sure, we got Final Fantasy 7, 8, and I don't know if 9's been released yet on the Switch. But
I think up to 10 has actually.
Up to 10 has, okay. And then
yeah, and 10 too. I think they're in a bundle.
Right, 10 too. But after that, well, 11 was an MMO. I don't know if 12 has been. That I feel like 12 would be okay on the Switch.
But even that kind of sucks that they're like a generation later coming back to Nintendo versus.
I definitely wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to play the first few Metal Gear Solid games. I know I have access to them or can play them, but it'd be nice to get them on the Switch since we already know. I mean, Twin Snakes was a GameCube game, and Metal Gear Solid 3 made it on the 3DS. So it'd be nice to just get the first 4, even though 4 was never on a Nintendo console. But yeah.
It's easy money for Konami. They just need to port it. They don't have to worry about all the drama of different voice actors and everything.
I mean, there's already an actual... Yeah, there's already a collection that has, like, all 4 of them, and I think Peace Walker and Private Ops, or Portable Ops, which, you know, has portable in its name, so...
That collection is very rare and very expensive now.
Damn.
Oh, by the way, Final Fantasy 12 did come to Switch.
Yeah, I thought so. The Zodiac Age, like, remaster. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But aside from that,
I feel like Metal Gear's a good.
Can't really think of anything.
Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate that things have come around. Like if this situation was in the GameCube or Wii days, there'd be a lot more. And then the ones that do come to Wii are like, but why is it like all motiony now? I mean, obviously that's the control system, but you know, like Madden came to Wii and was very popular on Wii, but it was not Madden in any normal sense.
Yeah, SSX had a Wii.
Yeah, actually, SSX. Blur, I think. Was the
Blur
one
was the one.
SSX Blur. That one was cool. I like that one. It was motion controlled and kind of weird. I still think SSX Tricky is the best, but I enjoyed Blur. I was sitting in the other room actually.
Huh.
Yeah, because the SSX reboot didn't show up on the Nintendo consoles.
Which, you know, like all things considered, maybe that's not so bad. I feel like the reboot lost a lot.
No,
like,
the reboot was cool. It wasn't 1 Tricky or 3, but I liked it.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like SSX was at its best when it was a little more like arcadey and loose, and for some reason I remember the reboot being a little more grounded.
Need for Speed hasn't been on a Nintendo console in a while.
They had Most Wanted on the Wii U, the remake, and I have that. That's pretty good. But yeah, they barely.
That wasn't a remake. That was a new game.
Oh yeah, new one, old name. Yeah, but yeah, Call of Duty. There's one that might actually be cool.
Oh, right. Yeah, Warzone.
Oh, I forgot they haven't been on Switch.
Yeah. Warzone would be great.
I forgot they haven't been on Switch, or didn't realize that.
Call of Duty? Yeah, the last one was on the Wii U. Black Ops 2,
Whoa.
I believe. But the Wii ones, again, those were games that they had the motion control, but they all sold over 1 million, every Call of Duty on Wii. And then they tried one on Wii U, and it didn't do so well, and they're like, never again. So,
what can you do?
it's funny how one game can break a combo, essentially.
True.
But yeah, I think most of everything else, I might actually just about do it for this episode. Kind of a weird place to stop, but that's where the news stopped. So I guess the only other thing is, you know, we just have to talk a little bit about that Amiibo giveaway. Because in celebration of our new Quarantine Chronicles sub-series or secondary show or whatever you want to call it, we have a giveaway as kind of part of our soft relaunch, thanks to Kevin and your many, many Amiibo. 30 plus in all is what you're saying, right?
Sure.
That sounds confident. And it's like, yeah, if I remember correctly from the top of the show, it was like Wii Fit Trainer, and that's how I know these shows are too long. If I remember correctly from when we started this episode, it was like Wii Fit Trainer in the first run of Villager and Marth and a bunch of others, right?
Yeah.
All Smash, or there's some
No, they're all Smash.
All Smash. Okay, so
all Smash, no breaks.
If people want to win those, either to keep because they want to complete their collection, or maybe to flip, who knows? But if they want to,
or to burn, just do whatever you want with them.
Just put them in a giant toxic pile of plastic. Whatever you want to do with them, they can be yours, and we're gonna make it very easy to win. We're gonna tweet a chance to win them. You retweet it. That's it. So if you don't already follow Random Nintendo on Twitter at Random Nintendo,
can we make it easier? That. Just like the tweet. Just like it.
Nah, because then we don't even get any traction that way.
Damn, made them gotta work for it.
You know what? Just see the tweet. Just if you see it, you're automatically entered, and we know your address. Just lay eyes on it. But yeah, it's we'll tweet it out sometime this week, and then if you retweet it and follow us, you have a chance to win it. And also by following us, you get a heads up of when the next Quarantine Chronicles goes up, which will be the alternating Sundays of the current show. And you'll get the next heads up of when the next Random Nintendo normal podcast goes up, which will be June 7th. And that one should be a pretty good one, I think. There's actually an event coming up in the days leading up to that called the Guerrilla Collective. It's a bunch of indie companies, including Thunderful, who we were talking about with Downhill, and Raw Fury, and Head Up, and all these different companies. They're going to be doing a 2-day game announcement event, essentially. So there could be some fun indie games coming out of that, and we'll, of course, whatever there's anything that catches our eye, we'll probably talk about, plus all the other news that may happen and what we've been playing. So you don't want to miss it. Follow us on Twitter or subscribe to us on all the podcast apps: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher. We are Random Nintendo.com on YouTube. And yeah, I think that just about does it. I don't know if you guys had anything you want to add.
No, I guess that's it.
No.
Yep.
Cool. Well then, in that case, Kevin, final word.
You didn't say our Twitter handles.
You're right. Wait, so that's not the final word. Okay, I can still say it. I'm JSR7. Angel is Wero, WEIRO_O, and Kevin, you are KVN Gomi. G-O-M.
That's how you know Jason's coming along in his ears.
Yes, sir.
No, that's how you know you're coming along in your ears.
Oh, because I forgot the handles. No, I'm off my game because I'm not used to promoting a second show at the end of the first show. Like Quarantine Chronicles is still so new, but everyone should check it out. It's really fun, actually. It's us talking about everything that's not Nintendo that we're into, hosted by Mr. Final Word himself, Kevin.
Listen to Quarantine Chronicles.